Welcome,
Good
everybody.
morning. Welcome back to day 11 of the Herstory Online Summit. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia, and I am graced with the presence of the beautiful Gail Jacobs coming to us all the way from Australia. Hi, Gail, how are you?
I am super excited. Thank you, Gertrude.
I
Nice
could
to
see.
be here.
Good to have you here, Gail. And we have the beautiful Ruth joining us. Hey, Ruth.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning for the land down under Australia and New Zealand from the future. I'm Ruth. I am in Harare in Zimbabwe. Good to be here. Day 11 it is.
11 days. We're almost halfway there, people, halfway through our 31-day marathon. And before we start this morning, let me acknowledge the traditional custodians of our country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Thank you for hosting us. Thank you for having me in Australia to share the Her Story stories with the world. So, our chairperson for the day is the beautiful Gail. Gail Jacobs, you're going to take over. I will introduce our first speaker because you don't have her bio, and I will cue the video. Then, after that, you're going to be cueing all the other videos that we have prepared for the day. Now, life is interesting the way it unravels, the people we meet, the stories that have come through. And we have put today's stories in a sequence of 3 to 4 videos to start us off. And we're just going to have fun and live and learn from all of these amazing people coming in from all over the world. So this is our first video for the day. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy. It's coming. And I think Gail.
Hello, everyone. I feel really excited to be here with you today on the Herstory Women's Global Empowerment Online Summit. Thank you very much to the organizers of this fantastic event for creating the platform where women can come together to share stories, to encourage one another, to cheer one another on as we journey through life, through different challenges, to different victories that we all celebrate. And as we all, live every day to create our stories. My name is Sumbondi, and the story I want to share with you today, I titled it Surprised by a Whisper. Before I continue, I'd like to acknowledge that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, to recognize that we are being gifted with so many resources and that we are custodians or stewards of, if you want to say that. And that brings me to acknowledge the land on which I live and I work. I want to acknowledge the Ghana people who are the traditional owners and the custodians of the Adelaide Plains region where I live and from where I am speaking to you today. I'm not sure which land that you sit on as you listen to me around the world, but just a moment to think about what that really means, the privilege that you have to be able to live and to work on that land, to be able to be part of the story that is being created on that land, and to recognize that the land in which you live and work, there are stories on that land. Sometimes those stories are pleasant and sometimes they are not. and to recognize that, part of the privilege that we have is that we are able to live here and to work here and benefit from the suffering of the traditional owners of the land, and to recognize that even though we are able to partake of the blessing of the land which we live in, it's not the case with everyone. I guess what I'm saying here is that stories are being created every day, living on stories, and we are creating stories. So the responsibility that comes with that privilege is to think about everywhere you go, anyone you encounter, to recognize that each person have a story, and to be curious about what is it about them. That's how we grow. That's how we learn. So thank you so much for the organizers of this event for giving us the opportunity to be able to share stories. To start off telling you my story, I will open up with a statement that says that within every one of us is the wisdom that knows what we don't know. Let that sink in for a moment. Within each and every one of us is the wisdom that knows what we don't yet know. But the thing to recognize about this is that this wisdom, it often comes in that still small voice. And in a very noisy and busy world, this still small voice gets drowned. This still small voice gets ignored. This still small voice gets missed. But if we learn to pay attention to this still small voice, we will be amazed, or we'll be surprised at what comes out of it. Part of my story with you today is a surprise for me from a whisper that I got. A few years ago, I would say maybe about 7 years ago, I was putting together a few magazine edition of Queen Inside of the magazine, which I only did 4 issues of that. And that meant for each issue, I was able to write 4 poems, which I didn't think much of it. And for a number of years, those things sat on my computer. I didn't have to think about them at all. But then in 2020, when coronavirus hit and we were all at home, I began to experience a lot of emotions. I began to experience a lot of feelings that I couldn't really explain. Sometimes I felt excruciating feelings. Sometimes I felt sadness. Sometimes I felt excitement. Sometimes I'm just reflecting on things. I was going through and experiencing things that I couldn't explain. And sometimes I cried, but I kept praying. I remember my husband would say to me, keep praying there, you know what you're doing. Because often I'll say, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on with me. I feel like I'm overwhelmed. I feel lost. I don't know what's going on. He said, keep praying. You know exactly what you're doing. And then one day I felt this still small voice in me says, put words to every feeling, every emotion, every thought that you're experiencing. I'm like, okay. Because the confusing thing for me then was sometimes we had different feelings. There was nothing externally that indicated that I should be feeling that way. Everything was fine, but I was feeling so many different things at the same time. But when I heard that still small voice that said to me, put words to every feeling, every thought, every emotion. You don't need to understand it. Just pen it. So I'm like, wow. It wasn't until then I stopped fighting what was happening to me. I didn't understand it. I couldn't explain it, but I was fighting it. But when this still small voice came, it gave me a purpose for what I was feeling. And I began to write. One poem after the other. One poem after the other. And I would write them. And I would write them. I kept writing until it got to a point I'm like, okay, I've got all of these poems. What do I do with them? And then the next small voice comes. How about put them together in a book? Oh, a book of poems. Wow, that's interesting. How do I even go about publishing? I had no clue. Again, I started feeling this, having this experience of fear and overwhelm of not knowing what to do. During the process of writing, something else came up that was another surprise for me, and that was the fact that I had to battle with a lot of self-doubt. That surprised me because generally I felt I was a very confident person in a lot of ways. But in that moment, I realized that in a situation of unknown, my insecurities showed up. In the situation of unknown, fears showed up, doubt showed up. I remember so many times I had to battle through negative thoughts of who are you to think you want to write something? Who's going to listen to you anyway? Who cares to even read whatever you're going to write? And I remember I had to push through and pray through to keep on writing. Sometimes I had to say to myself, I may not understand, but I'm going to keep doing what I need to do. I'm going to keep doing what I need to do. And step by step, I started having more. And the more I wrote, the more that came. I remember when I'd written about 10, I'm like, wow, if I can write 10, maybe I can do 20. Mind you, I had no idea what I was going to write, but I set that goal of 20 after I had written 10. And slowly but surely, I started writing again. And I hit that mark, I'm like, wow, I did 20. So if I can do 20 when I had no clue I could write any poems in the first place, maybe I can do 30. And I kept pushing and pushing and pushing until I have so many. And then I started thinking when the next thing came, put them in a book. I'm like, oh, okay, so what do I call them? What do I name the book? Because these are all different poems. There was no theme, nothing to it. I was just writing. And then again, the still small voice came, Divine Whispers. I said, oh, that made sense. Divine Whispers. So I'm like, okay, if I put this to be Divine Whispers, what am I going to call the next one if I write another one? But I know the still small voice came again. Divine Whispers gonna stay, but each volume is gonna have different themes. Oh, wow. Well, I've written all of these things. Surely, maybe there's not gonna be any theme in them. And the voice came again. How about you look through and start putting them together? So I began this next journey of looking through, putting them together, and began to learn about publishing. What do I need to do? How do I go about it? I kept pushing my own boundaries. I kept challenging my boundaries. In the process, I realized I was growing. And I started off writing I feel like I'll put it on writing a surface level. I wasn't being vulnerable. But over time, I started digging deep into all the different emotions and feelings and the fears that were showing up. And I began to write about those things. And I began to write about fear. I began to write about shame and scars and things like that. The other thing that came to me as a surprise is that in that process, while at the end of it, I could think that in a transactional way, when you write, you put things together, you get a product. That's a transactional outcome. So what was my transactional outcome of this process? Process from one still small voice, from one whisper, going through the journey and the process. At the end of it, there was a transactional outcome. I got a book published, but far more than that book, if I have to be honest, is the transformational outcome that came about. The person I was when I started to write is not the same person that I am now, because the journey and the process of writing actually helped me to deal with a lot of stuff within myself that showed up that I wasn't really aware, because I'd gotten to a place I was familiar with the familiar. I was comfortable, I was confident. But when I had to dip into waters I had not been in before, all of these things came up. And I'm glad I went on that journey, because I'm a better person for it. So I guess I'm sharing this story. It's not new to you. You can imagine that at some point in your life, you've heard that still small voice saying something to you. Something that probably didn't make sense. Like in my case, to write poems and all of that. I wasn't that person as far as I knew. But that wisdom knew better. The voice that came from a place of knowing that I didn't know. But I guess what I'm saying here is that we need to trust that voice, even if we don't know, because the wisdom knows better. We need to be able to submit ourselves to the process, even when we don't understand. We need to challenge our own fears and boundaries and allow us to go through that process. At the end of it, we'll be better for it. So what are some of the things that, I could think about in terms of this process, this journey, listening to that whisper, and, at the end of it, having a transactional outcome and a transformational outcome? I think one of the key things, number one, will be to pay attention. Self-awareness is very, very important because it gives us the opportunity to be able to notice what's going on for us, what's not going on for us, how am I feeling, what emotions going on, what am I noticing around me. I heard something, that voice that said that. What was that about? Was it just me thinking? What was I thinking before that thought came? Giving time to self-reflect and to pay attention. And I know this is very challenging, especially now we have so many things, that's, fighting for our attention. So many things that we need to give time to. And it takes away that time of reflection. My point here is that we need to create time to reflect. We need to create time to pay attention to ourselves and what is going on for us. And then the other thing, apart from paying attention and being more self-aware, is to be able to capture the whisper. Maybe that still small voice comes to you and says something. Capture it. Maybe put it in a notebook, turn it into a song so you don't forget, or, put it on a notepad on your mobile phone, because we go everywhere with our mobile phones these days. Capture it. You may not use it, but hey, it's not going to hurt. Capture that whisper. It may not make sense now, but it may make sense later. The next thing I would say is don't overthink or overanalyze. And I can say, hey, I'm saying that to myself because I tend to overanalyze things. I want to see everything, laid out from, I want to know what I'm doing. But sometimes you need to trust the wisdom. Don't overthink, don't overanalyze. It may not make sense in the minute, but in time, it will make sense. Then the next thing is, you're paying attention, you're noting things, you're writing these things down, and you have something that, looks like, okay, maybe that makes sense, or it doesn't yet. Take action. What action do you need to take from the whisper, from that still small voice, from what you've heard? What action do you need to take? Do you need to go take that form to apply for that studies? Do you need to get a new jotter and start writing things down? Do you need to get a notebook next to your bed at night so that when you wake up with a thought, you're writing them down? Take action. Do something about the whisper. Do something about the wisdom that is coming to you. It may not be big. Oftentimes it seems like little, but that little whisper is going to become an echo if you take action and you run with it. And I think one of the other things is to submit to the process. Submitting to the process is not always easy. It's going to ask of you, because if you want to become somebody different, you're going to have to let go of who you used to be. So it's going to challenge you. It's going to push your limits. It's going to push your boundaries. It's going to force you to become vulnerable, to go to places within yourself that, you probably don't want to go to places within yourself that make you feel exposed, like everyone's gonna know what I'm thinking in my head when I put it in a book. Oh my goodness, what's gonna happen? Or it's gonna make people see me when I make mistakes. It's gonna make people realize that, I'm still doing this, I'm still struggling with that. If you want the whisper to become an echo that then reverberates to other people around you, we're going to submit to the process. But I think based on my experience, we'll be better for it. Apart from getting the transactional outcome that I call it, maybe a tangible thing, a tangible product, a tangible result. But more than that is a transformational outcome, which is the person that you become in the process. I'm very grateful for that whisper. I'm very grateful for that voice that said, put words to those feelings, to those emotions that you're going through, to everything that you're experiencing. You don't have to understand it, but put words to them. It was something I could have just ignored. And I look back and I wonder how many whispers I've ignored and what they could have become today if I had followed through. But at the same time, I'm grateful that I listened to that whisper and I followed through. And at the end of that whisper, again, like I said, is a book published of poetry that I didn't think, it wasn't even anything I started out that I wanted to publish a book of poetry. But that's an outcome of submitting to that process. But to me, so much more than that is the person that I've become in that process. This is my story. And I know this is not an unfamiliar story because I know that we all hear that still small voice sometimes. But it comes in ways or says things that are so unfamiliar to us, or they seem so insignificant that we often ignore them. Having gone through this process and this journey myself, I began to ask myself the question and wonder if what I currently know about myself is all there is. And I know now that that's not the case. I know now that there's so much more within me and within you that we've not even begun to scratch the surface. But unless we are able to take the journey that we are being led through that still small voice that I call a whisper, we may never know. I guess at the end of this journey for me, I've become a lot more curious about this and challenging myself. And I want to put the same challenge to you and the same question. To ask you that, have you ever wondered if what you currently know about yourself and what if currently actually where you are right now is all there is? And how has that limited or how has that propelled you? Think about that for a moment. If you had asked me like 2 years ago that, oh yeah, you're going to publish a book of poetry, it's not something that's going to come naturally for me to think I could do that because I didn't think I had the capacity to do that. But an interesting thing happened when I put the book together and I was going to write the back cover for the book. And I was reading about what do I need to write on the back cover, and you need to write something that actually qualifies you or gives you the authority to write what you have written. I'm like, okay, what's the track record here for me about poetry? And it wasn't until that moment then I heard the whisper again and I was reminded of when I was very young, maybe in primary school or early high school. I used to have a notebook where I would write things. I would write inspirational things. I would write things, you do handmade cards, and I would write messages in them. And I had that moment of, aha, this was there all along. It's just been buried under so many other things that I never even consciously thought about that. And even while I was writing the poems, it didn't even come to mind until I got to the point where I needed that wisdom. And that still small voice brought it again. Wow. There is more for you. There is more for me. I guess the bottom line of my story, which is your story, that I want you to keep paying more attention to is the fact that it doesn't matter where we are, it doesn't matter how much we've seen of ourselves, there is still so much more. But the challenge is the invitation to so much more does not always come with a loud bang or sound. Sometimes it comes in that still small voice. And in a loud and noisy world, unfortunately, that still small voice gets drowned. My invitation is to slow down the noise so that the whisper can become clear to you. As you allow the whisper, I'm confident that there's going to be an echo eventually if you follow through the process. It may not make sense to start with. It may even be something that you can't even imagine that you are able to do, or something that is in you. But trust that wisdom. Allow that wisdom to lead you. You're not going to have the full picture, because I can imagine if at the beginning the wisdom said you're going to write a book of poetry, that would have overwhelmed me, because at that point in time I didn't believe that I had it in me. But step by step by step by step by step, I got there in the end. Now I have the confidence, now I have the belief that I have it in me. And writing these sort of things now is not that overwhelming anymore. I'm grateful for this experience, and I'm sharing this journey with you because I know you have it in you as well. Begin to wonder and ask yourself the question, what you currently know about yourself. What you have achieved so far, is that all there is? And how has that limited or propelled you? My message to you is this: there is more for you. Thank you so much for listening. It's been a great honor to be here, and I hope that you've enjoyed this story.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. We had a bit of a challenge with that last video. Gail, was it clear on your side? The video quality? It wasn't. Okay, so we're going to rely on the internet links instead. Ruth has just put the bio for our next speaker, if you'd like to read that out, and then I will give you the link.
Okay, Megan, is that our next speaker?
That's the next one, yes.
Okay. Megan started in real estate industry working with Wells Fargo Home Mortgage in 2008. Despite of the huge recession and the housing crisis, Megan achieved coveted President's Club Award months for her sales clothes. So sorry, I'm battling here. While at Wells Fargo, Megan built up a network of real estate investors and learned some of the best practices in real estate investing during the recession. While working full time, Megan began house hacking her primary residence while while convincing her tenants to implementing the, oh, sorry, I'm struggling here. Implementing the buy, renovate, rent, refinances, and repeat strategy. Megan and her husband Derek was gazelle intense about getting out of debt, so they worked overtime, had 3 to 4 side hustles, and were able to pay off 535,000 of personal debt, including their mortgage of $188,000 in student loans under 5 years. One of Megan's side hustles was using her sales and her marketing skills to rapidly grow a local property management company, which Megan get to her real estate license. Then I'm gonna cue
So
up
now
the
you can play
video.
that. Yeah.
Is it the one right below?
Yeah, the one right below where you just finished reading. And then share your screen. We'll see if the video quality is going to be better with the YouTube. Stop the video, cue it up first, then share screen.
Hi, thank you so much, Hania. It's a pleasure to be here. I just want to make sure administratively, am I allowed to share my screen just to go over some visual aids really quick? Okay, this is perfect. Okay, so I'm so honored to be here, and again, I'm Megan Lamke, and what I wanted to share as a part of my story was I've accomplished some of these great things, but I feel like it's been because I needed to find a way to bring purpose to the pain that had happened in my backstory. So today, hopefully what I share is inspiring you and spurs you along to build a business for good. I'm going to be sharing some of the marketing and systems techniques that we've used to create innovative ways for corporate giving. So what I'm talking about today, again, all of this builds upon ways to elevate yourself so that you can make a larger impact and impact more people through corporate generosity or through individual generosity. But it all starts with defining your why, defining your niche, figuring out ways that you can automate, figure out ways that you can bring people alongside you in your journey and delegate. Figuring out how you can elevate and reach and build an audience through your corporate giving, and then inspire other people to do the same. So like Handi mentioned, here's my story. Here's some of the accolades that I've been blessed to accomplish. I've lived in Cape Town, South Africa, in Sydney, Australia, in the United Kingdom, and in Mexico. And so I love traveling and connecting with people from different walks of life, different places, and really embracing Ubuntu and the sense that we're all better together because of our shared humanity. So with anytime you have tragic things that happen in your past, you really need to define what's going to be that why that propels you forward. So people don't buy what you do. They simply but they do buy why you do it, and what you do proves what you believe. And so many of us have heard Simon Sinek from the States, and he talks about it starts with why, but it's applicable to business, but it's also applicable to impact. Why are we all together here as this community? Why are we all using our voices to make a difference? Because we believe in the 10,000, in the million women that are behind us that are scared or trepidatious about using their voice to share their story, and we're paving a way for them. So defining your why. we're looking for the intersection between all of these different Venn diagrams. So what you do well, what you love, what the world needs, what you're going to get paid for, and all of that boils down to your purpose. So for me, my purpose comes from my story. So my story is, we live in the United States. I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota, where so much social injustice is happening right now. We grew up in a family that struggled financially and health-wise. My mother passed away really suddenly. And then I was physically and sexually abused after university. And that caused me to go through an immense amount of grief and trauma, and decided one day when I was studying abroad in Cape Town and actually bumped into Desmond Tutu at lunch, I asked him, amongst all the pain and suffering, how do you keep going forward? And he said that you need to have a purpose that's bigger than yourself. So I decided in that moment to use all of the pain and trauma that I had been through and use it to somehow, some way create a platform that reached more women who struggled financially, who were physically or emotionally or sexually abused. And so I decided the fastest way for me to do that was to build a company and use the revenue to make an impact and empower more women. So some of the things that women need to do when they're defining their business is going through and defining what their niche is, what their brand is, how their mission and vision and audience is going to target and impact the cause that they're going after, and how they're going to make a profit. So then they'll position things on their website to really attract additional customers and make it very clear what your mission, vision, and purpose is. From there, what I found is that there's 4 different levels of time management, and there's tasks that we all do. So brown tasks for me, where I'm scrolling on social media and I'm wasting time just doing mindful tasks or binge watching Netflix. There's other tasks that I could be doing that allow me to make a financial, be paid for my time, and then I can in turn give those resources away. So those were some of the light green tasks, things like responding to emails or managing tasks throughout the day. Then there were darker green tasks that really were the core business functions that I learned I needed to systemize and make sure that it was very duplicatable, so that I would spend the majority of my time doing those tasks. And then there were goal tasks that only I could personally do, like being a mother to my daughter or being a wife and partner to my husband. And I needed to find a way to have money coming in so I wouldn't be so stressed. Like you heard in the beginning parts of our story, where I was working 80 hours a week, not really present and not engaged. And so what I found is that as I hired and delegate and pulled together resources from virtual assistant agencies like Legacy Virtual or HireMyMom.com or Bus Stop Mamas or Upwork or Fervor, I met all these amazing women from across the globe that could help elevate and do the daily tasks of my business or helping run nonprofits. And together we were able to accomplish more. So then we chose to automate a lot of our business processes using technology stacks to engage better with our customers. In our automation, we wanted to make sure that we were attracting, capturing, serving, leading, and promoting, so that we, again, could articulate a very clear message, all with the idea of our business is built around affecting social justice and social change. And then we wanted to systemize it. So the best in the business, like the Brandon Bjorklunds, the Lindsay Boggs, the Daniel Disneys, have built these amazing technology followings because they did a system that worked. I wanted to make sure every single person that worked with me was getting training and coaching that she deserved, and that everything was standardized. So as we continue to scale and grow, it made it duplicatable for the entire team. And most successful entrepreneurship investments have that same structure where there's delegation, there's automation, there's systemization. But all of this was so I could spend the majority of my time elevating and figuring out ways that we could have a huge core impact. We've known that when you have a business that has a corporate social impact vision, mission, values, you're attracting more customers, you're able to motivate your employees, and you're impacting and changing lives. It's been statistically proven by Forbes, by Money Magazine, that 90% of shoppers are more likely to purchase a product that has a corporate social mission and vision. They're 60% more likely to have customer loyalty. You're 67% more likely to have employees want to work for corporations that have a huge social justice platform. And you're increasing productivity overall in your workforce of 13% when you have this mission, vision, social tie to your work, and more than 50% reduction in turnover of employees when they have the ability to realize what they're doing on a daily basis is changing lives, which is what's so exciting to me, is that collectively we can accomplish more. So as I continued to study this, there were multiple different giving models that corporations and individuals have embraced. There's the traditional model of giving where a portion of your proceeds goes to a cause that you care about, and you get to have the materials and talk about it with your customers. Or there's this new model of giving where you can connect a measurable good with every sale. We see this universally with Feed My Starving Children, where every time someone purchases a handmade good from one of the Feed My Starving Children organizations, that good translates to meals delivered. So it's a one-for-one or one-to-many model of giving with every measurable good. Another example is choosing a compelling narrative that is empowering to the people that you're doing business with. So one of the partners that we've chosen to partner with is Venture, because they fight human trafficking in Southeast Asia. Less than 2% of dollars have been given toward Southeast Asia. And it's really a problem. And so when other people in the community see a traffic girl at Venture, they see a college graduate, and we've created ways for someone to transfer from being an opium farmer to a redemptive entrepreneur, or a victim of oppression to a church planter, or a war refugee to a national leader. And all of these things wouldn't have been possible without other entrepreneurs going through and elevating themselves and saying, who can I help and how can I help? And really answering that life's greatest question by Tom Rath, what have I been put on this universe to uniquely do, and who can I help along the way? And so that's been one of the most exciting things with Venture. And if you wanted to know more information about this, this is the 4-step program that we found to be really helpful, is picking a price point, writing that compelling narrative, providing stories and images to promote amongst your employees and your customers, and then celebrating your impact along the way. So like I said before, we created a whole company based off of investing in real estate, but also every month when our tenants pay rent on time, we're rescuing girls, we're providing education, we're creating entrepreneurs in some of the least reached, least resourced places on the planet. And so that's what fires me up and keeps me up at night, is that we're able to make a difference. In 2020 alone, we rescued over 1,000 girls from sex trafficking in Nepal. And the stories that come out of that now, where these women have passions at being political figures or entrepreneurs or college graduates, it's so encouraging to me. And the other piece that we've encouraged people to do along the way is, as you're incorporating corporate social justice with your business or with your individual investors, you need to talk to your community, whether that's your prospects, your customers. You need to build a tribe and can get that continuous improvement, stir up those stories and share them with the masses. And we've also found that simple customer appreciation gifts are wonderful ways to have that lasting difference and that lasting brand power. So those are the things that I've talked about, how to build scalable businesses for good. So the keys are defining your why, defining your niche, eliminate all of the tasks that are sucking your time, automate as much as possible, hire and delegate, bring in great people from all around the world that can really help you grow as on an individual and on a corporate level, and then elevate your mind by choosing to work on activities that make a lasting social impact. And hopefully that inspires others to build a business for good. So I want to leave you all with this. This is one of my favorite quotes. I've personalized it for this audience though, because we're all women here and it's super empowering to read this. I'm just going to read it off of the one that I keep near and dear to my desk. It's not the critic who counts, not the woman who points out how the strong woman stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit actually belongs to the woman in the arena whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives vigilantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there's no effort with error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions of who spends her life in a worthy cause like this one, who at her best knows the end of triumph of high achievement, and who at her worst, if she fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that at her place never shall be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. So just wanted to leave all of you with that. I'm so excited to dare greatly alongside every single one of you. If you want to know more information about me, here's how you can connect with me and learn more about the Business for Good movement that we have. You can find it on wherever you listen to podcasts. We bring on new guests every day who are starting their entrepreneurship ventures for good. So that's it.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Gail. It's interesting how somebody travels to South Africa and finds her calling and creates such an interesting business, helping other women in business and entrepreneurs as a whole. So that was Megan. Very interesting presentation from her. So I think we have lined up our next video there, Gail. You see it in the chat? Pause it first and then share the
Share it.
screen. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Helen. And Kelly, it's so lovely to meet you. It really is. You are a wonderful inspiration, and I'm so blessed to have you in my circle and all of you ladies in my circle from now on. So thank you for having me. Well, 2015 for me was a fantastic year. I had basically gotten myself out of the sexually transmitted debt that I had from my ex-husband. I got myself back into shape. I was incredibly motivated. I was a happy little piglet. And 2015, 2 weeks before Christmas, I log into my bank account. I wanted to do some Christmas shopping. And I thought, well, let me check that I had been paid. What do I see? I see minus $100,000. I know, Lizzie, my reaction was exactly the same. I was like, what the hell? Well, before I tell you what happened, let me give you a little bit of my backstory. So I have been a single mother for 26 years. I grew up in South Africa to German and Italian parents, and when I was 20 years old, the police knocked on my door to tell me that my partner had died in a car hijacking. I had a 6-month-old baby. I was halfway through my accounting degree, and let me tell you something, that moment was a major defining moment in my life because I literally had to grow up overnight. And I moved heaven and earth. I got myself out of South Africa because I felt at that point that it wasn't safe to raise a child anymore, and I was scared to live there. I moved halfway across the world, and I've raised this child on my own for 26 years. I've gotten him through various hearing issues because we found out he couldn't hear when he was 6 years old. He'd gradually gone deaf. So there was a lot of remedial teaching involved, which is expensive. I then got remarried in 2012, and that didn't work out so well. I got married to an entrepreneur who I supported for nearly 4 years, and at that point I just said, I've had enough. I've got to now take care of myself. So 2015 for me was a major defining year because I was at the point where, as a single mother, I was completely debt-free and entering my 40s, and my plan was to really start saving and thinking about my future. So there I'm sitting in front of my computer, and I've got this minus 100,000 on my bank account. Well, what had happened when I was married, I had this debt from my husband, and I would take out credit cards that were zero interest transfers. So I just keep transferring the debt, not paying interest and paying them off. And I hadn't actually even thought about closing the accounts. Somebody had gotten into my 5 credit cards and literally maxed every single one out. It was somebody that had hacked into my laptop. And let me tell you something, I don't remember much of the first part of 2016. I had a complete nervous breakdown. I mean, I'm 40 years old. I suddenly owe $100,000 to something I didn't even do anything for. I had nothing to show for it. And I just didn't see a point in going on, to be frank. I was at a point in my life where I literally planned ways to kill myself because I just didn't want to go on. And it got to the point where I was so low that I actually cut my wrists. Not bad enough to be in hospital, but I had the knife out and I cut my wrists. But something in me didn't give up. It didn't give up. And one thing I learned from the experience is that when your boats are burned, when you have nothing to lose, you find the most incredible strength in yourself. And I came out of that corner fighting. Now, all of this happened in December 2015. And in July 2016, I got an anonymous email from somebody who said, I know who this person is. He sent me a photo of the guy's Facebook account. It was this big fat guy. He was sitting on a big pink flamingo in his pool, looking very content. And this anonymous tip said to me, look, here are some details about him. And here's his email. So I wrote to this guy and I said to him, I know exactly who you are. I'm coming to Tel Aviv next week because this was a scam that came out of Tel Aviv. And I'm going to start criminal proceedings against you. I didn't even airport, let alone fly to Tel Aviv. And I said to him, oh, and by the way, if you don't give me all my money back, I will be contacting Interpol as well. And I've got a private detective watching you. I know that you've got this pool in your house, and I know from my anonymous tip-off that you speak Spanish. So within an hour like that, I got a response. And a month later, I got everything back as well as the interest. Now, to put this in perspective, I've got a friend who works in security, and he said to me, you're insane, because for $20,000, he could have put a contract out on you and he would have saved and kept $80,000. But you know what? I didn't care because I had absolutely nothing to lose. Now, that August proved to me to be one of the best months of my entire life, because the other thing that I was going through that year is I was being severely bullied at work. It got to the point where I would drive into the car park, see this person's car, and burst into tears. And in August of that year, I got all my money back from this scam. Obviously, I couldn't leave work because I needed the income. And I got retrenched. And that for me was a defining moment in my life, because never again. I was never, ever going to depend on someone again. And I was never going to be in a financial position like that again. And I was going to make sure that no other woman, if I could help it, would be in that position. So I knew for me that the way to financial freedom was to set up my own business. And so I did. And today I coach women on how to build a business online, because it's a fantastic time to do that. On the one hand, we women have many gender equality issues, and we really struggle, especially in the corporate workplace, to earn the same amount as men. But we have this beautiful, incredible opportunity to build incomes online, which gives us incredible freedom. Now, I'm not the only one when I think of all the struggles that I've gone through as a single parent and as a woman financially. I'm not the only woman who suffered from this. Statistics show that 1 in 3 women, 1 in 3, so if you're literally sitting in a group of 3 women, one of you is going to end up living in poverty in midlife over the age of 45. And I'm not talking about third world ladies. I'm talking about Australia, New Zealand, the US, the UK. This is serious, serious stuff. And the thing is, the way we're raised as girls, certainly when I was raised, and I'm in my mid-40s, we were led to believe in this dream about Cinderella and our, we were going to have a prince sweep us off our feet, and we were probably going to get a good job, prince sweeping us off our feet. We were going to have 2 little kids, white picket fence, life was going to be perfect. Nobody warned us or educated us that we have to take care of ourselves financially. And what happens with us is that the minute we have children, unless we're very, very careful, we end up in a life of poverty. So what happens essentially is the reason we end up like this is the gender pay gap and, of course, divorce. Those 2 things together and raising children for many women will end us up in the poorhouse. And I'm even talking about women who are professionals. One of my students, she had an incredibly successful corporate business. She used to market technology to women, and she got divorced at 55. Her husband left her. She decided to give him all their personal assets and she would keep the business. But he didn't tell her that he hadn't paid tax in the business for 3 years. So whilst he ended up with a farm, the 3 cars, all the furniture, she ended up sleeping on her father's couch in the retirement home, because at 55, she lost everything and she had to declare bankruptcy. And she met me, we worked together, and I started teaching her how to build a business online. And I'll never forget, she said to me one day, if I hadn't met you, I wouldn't have been able to feed myself. I wouldn't have had the money to buy food. And this is the issue that so many women in their 50s, 60s now face. They don't have enough to retire on. They don't have any superannuation, very little. And it's a question of, well, do I pay for the electricity this month? Or do I actually pay for my medicine? And I want to make sure that any woman that I come across that I can help never, ever has to go through that. So the other issue we're facing, of course, is COVID. And COVID has had one of the biggest economic impacts on women since the Great Depression. It's made this whole issue of female poverty so much worse. The other issue that we face is, of course, we're never going to not be mothers. We will always end up being mothers, and that's always going to take an enormous amount of time. And what happens is we end up spending a disproportionate amount of time compared to men looking after children. And some of us also obviously have elderly parents to look after. So the gender equality gap in terms of pay, men earn on average 52% more than women. 52%, that is an enormous figure. And then you couple that with divorce, what happens? Women's salaries, divorced women's salaries go down 10%, and divorced men's salaries go up 26%. So let me tell you the story about Sophie and David. Sophie and David both went to university and graduated at the same time. And they fell hopelessly in love, and at 26, they got married. Now, at that point, each had started a job roughly at the same time. David earned $48,000 a year. Sophie earns $40,000 a year. After they got married, they bought their little house. Life was great. They worked for another 2 years. And at that point, Sophie fell pregnant. And they sat down and had a discussion. It was decided because David earned $20,000 more than Sophie now, of course she would stay home and look after the kids. So that's what she did. Fast forward 10 years, they've now got 3 kids. And Andrew's had various promotions. He's earning $100,000 a year. Sophie decides to go back to work. But she needs a job that's flexible, and she needs a job that's relatively easy to step into because she hasn't been working for 10 years, right? So she's earning $25,000 a year. Remember, Andrew's earning $100,000 a year. 5 years later, they get divorced. They split the assets down the middle. Everything's nice and fair. Andrew goes off and buys himself a house. Sophie, unfortunately, because of her salary, can't afford a mortgage for the 3 kids and herself. A house big enough, couldn't afford it. So what she does is she puts her money in the bank and she rents. Come 55, Andrew's paid off his mortgage. He's got $500,000 in superannuation. Sophie, on the other hand, has used up nearly all of her savings from her divorce, and she's still renting. So she's basically facing a very precarious situation in a life of homelessness. And that could be, thanks, Ellie. You see, that's the thing. It can happen to so many of us. And I have so many women that I start working with who are in a very, very similar position. And I know myself the sacrifices, the financial sacrifices we make as women, because I got to the age of 40 and I had absolutely no savings. And plus I had this $100,000 of debt, which thank God, what a miracle. I just still am stunned by what happened, that I managed to get out of it. But ladies, we need to educate our girls. And we need also to make sure that this doesn't happen to us, because even if you are married, you are not safe. I've had so many stories I can share with you. Another one of my clients, and I'm not blaming men, I absolutely love men. I think they are the most wonderful creatures. But another one of my clients, her husband had to go off and work somewhere else. And he had an affair and he had a child with this other lady. So, of course, they got divorced. And here she was also mid-50s. Suddenly, whole world's turned upside down. Another client, they had a beauty business. She didn't know her husband had been fiddling the books and they lost the business. So clearly she divorced him. Again, she said to me, well, I'm 55 years old. I'm starting from scratch. Nobody's going to employ me. What am I going to do? Well, here's the thing, girls. You need multiple income streams, and you need to try and set up what they call a passive income for yourself. Multiple income streams will protect you. So if you get retrenched like I was retrenched in 2007, and like Kelly before, who spoke about having lost her job and living in her car, what was she going to do? Having a single income stream is very dangerous. You need to have 1 or 2 income streams. Have a side hustle. Maybe that side hustle will become a main hustle. I don't know. And it very well could become a main hustle, but you must have multiple income streams. The second concept I want to teach you is about passive income. If you work on an hourly basis and you are paid for your time, you will work until the day you die. I'll repeat that. You will work until the day you die. What you need to set up, and we've got this incredible opportunity with online at the moment, is that if you have some sort of a product or a service that can sell literally while you sleep, you will be earning a passive income. So try and get some multiple income streams and try and get some form of passive income. You might get it from an investment. I always grew up thinking I could never afford a house. And of course, I live in one of the most expensive cities in the world. And I was thinking this morning, actually, in the car, that I've literally had this monetary block for many years. I could never afford a house as a single mother. But there are other ways you can buy property. You can actually buy in consortiums now and invest that way. So don't say to yourself, I can never do this. Find out. Go and arm yourself. You have to become smarter. This is not stuff they teach you in schools. I've got an undergraduate degree in accounting to earn more income, thinking that my son, it would be a way to protect my son. I went off and did a master's degree, an MBA, which is meant to be the be all and end all of degrees. You know, do that and you can write your own paycheck. And it still took me years to work this out. So I'm on a mission to educate women, because the more we help each other and the more in the first world we can raise our standards, the more we can help our sisters in the third world as well, because that's another one of my passions. And the reason that I had a lady once say to me, look, I feel so bad charging for what I do because it's my passion. I need to help everybody. But you have to look after yourself first. And what happens when you look after yourself first and you have that income, you can help so many more people as well. And that's where I'm thriving, because I also now go out and I help keep girls in school and keep them educated in places like Africa and Asia as well. All right, so before I leave you, I am going to give you 3 little tasks to do, very easy, and you can literally start today if this is something that you're passionate about. If you want to protect your financial future, if you don't want to end up living in a caravan eating cornflakes or sitting there going, well, this month, do I get my medication or do I have electricity and heat? You need to do this. So you have to commit to stepping out of your comfort zone. You will not grow. You will not live a divine, thriving, abundant life if you don't commit to be a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, because in order to grow, you have to go through that process. So welcome that feeling of discomfort and change. You have to make this commitment and say, look, it's going to take me a bit of work. I'm going to have to change. I'm going to have to become more committed, and I have to think about my financial future, but that's okay because I'm going to get through the end. Find a support system. This is number 2, very important. Find a support system of women like these Herstory girls that will support you and support your dream and your vision. You become the 5 people closest to you. So be very, very careful who you hang out with. I had a friend many years ago who I decided to end that friendship. She was a really, really big girl, much, much bigger than me. And look, I'm not small either. But she always used to talk about fat girls like us. And I decided one day that she was projecting on me, and that was not an energy I wanted, because she was actually dragging me down. I think she was trying to make herself feel better. And for me, that was a relationship I didn't want anymore. So if you hang out with women who pull you down, as much as you love them, you've got to break that bond somehow. Find your tribe and love them hard. And then the final thing I would suggest to you is download my planner. Gertrude's going to make that available. And come and work with me in my workshop that I'm running in a couple of weeks' time. Let's nut out some stuff. At this point, you might be thinking, oh gosh, I have no clue what I'm going to do. I need inspiration. Or just thinking, I just can't do it. You can. If I can track down an international con artist when the Australian police, Interpol, the FBI, UK Scamwatch all told me it was too hard, then you can do this too. I know you can, and I believe in you. Thank you so much for having me today. And I'm just excited because I'm on a mission and I'm going to make this happen for as many women as I can.
Wow, another great presentation, a great reminder to all of us really to take care of our finances, be aware of how you're saving money for the future and creating money for the future as well. What was your take, Gail? You're muted.
It's 2022, and I know that we've been locked down for the last 2 years and been online, and I'm still struggling with my mute button. But what I've taken away from actually both these ladies was the fact that we actually need to start taking self-care and actually start working on a plan for ourselves. I think I've been using the word passive in the wrong context. So instead of having a passive income, I've been passive about my future and where I'm going. So I've been inspired to actually rethink where I'm going and where I could potentially end up. Angela has really put some fear in me right now. Previous lady has encouraged me big time. I mean, she has paid up. If I convert the money or the debt that she had, it was more than 10 million South African rands, and she paid it off in 5 years. So definitely some work for me from both these ladies.
It is a wake-up call. It really is a wake-up call, but a good one. A good one. So I've queued up the next video there in the chat.
Okay.
Do your thing.
Like you already know, I am based in South Africa right now, and I've got a passion for social ills. But not only in talking about them, but more so in doing something about them, because one realizes that there's so much narrative around what is happening around us, and one cannot help but feel some sort of pain and trauma, because we all at some point in our lives experience one of them. And I've realized through my journey that there are ways and means to overcome the social challenges that life presents us with. And that is the story of Mountains and Hills to Overcome. It is a story about my life and my mother's life. And I don't think it's that much different from stories of most women around us. It is riddled with ignorance. It is riddled with abuse by caregivers, misunderstood gender roles, divorce, marriages that seem not to work as perfectly as we hope for. It is riddled by betrayal and infidelity, by all sorts of addictions that we have suffered and witnessed. Then using religion as a means to escape from life challenges, witnessing disease, experiencing mental illness, and the list goes on. But then, most importantly, I think it is a story of hope, a story of awareness, a story of healing, a story of empowerment and prevention, a story intended to destigmatize the social ills confronting and affecting most, and just to provide a hope for a better future. I believe that parallel to telling our mostly traumatic life stories, we need to all have an obligation to also create a new narrative. And this narrative has a potential to change the current status quo for both ourselves and our young people, our youth, and I think for generations still to come. What I do as a means of sharing my life journey is visit schools, visit clinics, visit mental institutions, rehabilitation centers, to try and encourage those who are suffering trauma and help them see that that is not the end of their lives. I was actually recently challenged to contribute to a paper which addresses the strength that reduction of social challenges and economic challenges. And that gave me again a glimpse into the material and institutional infrastructure that is available in most communities that are intended to raise well-rounded human beings. But unfortunately, these institutions as well are riddled with challenges like patriarchy, abuse, and trauma for women and girls especially. And in most cases, I realized that they lack the basic capabilities to overcome the after effects. And I know that is not a new story. I know that that is a story that we hear all the time. But then what are we doing about it? How are we raising our boys and girls in our homes? Because the family is the basic institution where people learn how to live together. And I think until we introspect and look at how we may raise better families and create, examples of family units that are resilient, we will still be faced with similar challenges. We know that, of course, there is no universal family structure, which we all wish there was, that would serve as a perfect mold. There's no, way, a manual that one can read as to how to raise children or how to be a better wife or how to be a better father. But then we also know that all these are exacerbated by challenges such as poverty, disempowerment, poor health, all which contribute to the vulnerability of families. And in most communities, we have schools, we have churches of our students. How are we utilizing those to the benefit of our communities? How are we instilling better values that promote the probability of our children becoming better adults, and with the hope that they will experience life in ways that are better than us? Isn't it time perhaps that we look at where we have gone wrong? Isn't it time that we look at our boys as well and say, we want to raise better men in these boys that we have in our homes, as part of combating the social challenges that we are faced with? Isn't it time that we apologize to our children where we have gone wrong and try and unlearn with them all the wrongs and retrain ourselves over and over again on how to live differently? Let me share a little bit about the book. The main character in the book, who I have, as I've said before, resembles mine and my mother's story, is a woman that was raised in the same society that I've described, groomed to be an ideal wife by the standards of the day. She believed in marriage. She supported her family, neglected herself, experienced betrayal and domestic violence, witnessed disempowerment, lost her zeal for life, contemplated suicide. But then she bounced back. She reinvented herself. She improved her education. She accepted that her past needed healing and forgiveness, and realized that all faculties of herself were important: the physical, the mental, and the spiritual constructs collectively. Her voice reemerged as a more committed individual to be of service to other people. And that is the story of my life, ladies and gentlemen. Well, there are no gentlemen in the room, my apologies. I was raised in Soweto by immigrant parents who originated from Lesotho, which is the setting of the novel. Mom was divorced when she was 38 years old, and raised all of us alone. There were challenges. We didn't have what most of our peers had growing up. But she instilled certain values in us that helped us to bounce back. Unfortunately, or fortunately, at 38 as well, I was divorced, and I just saw a trend. But then I escaped. I escaped into religion, into addictions, all sorts of them. But I also escaped physically because my job then took me to live in other countries. And I think that is where most of the reflection happened. Looking around one of the poorest countries in the world, and realizing that we're all the same. And while I was there, traveling to some of most prominent countries in the world, and still finding that women experience similar challenges. So when I returned home, which was back in 2019, I then decided these need to be documented. These need to be written about, and I reached out to other women and said, how are you managing this? How are you dealing with this? And I think for me, that was the beginning of my healing journey. My mother is 85 years old. I'm actually in her house right now with my teenage boys. We're visiting her for the lockdown period. And just talking to her every single day, sharing tea in the morning, praying together in the evenings. I realized that sometimes you just need a tribe of women to be able to continue the healing process. It's never a done deal. because when you meet other women and you hear their stories, you realize that, they still bring tears to your eyes. Just listening to some of the things that Velvet shared with us this evening brought tears to my eyes. But then those are tears of hope. Those are tears of belonging. Those are tears that say, you're not alone. And we all just keep on keeping on. And tomorrow is always brighter than where we have been before. But still on mountains and hills to overcome, we also have a second character who is Mutsewa's a husband who, in my life journey, resemble my father as well as my ex-husband. And their stories are different because my dad succumbed to a painful death after making a really long series of careless decisions that destroyed the family, that destroyed his entire well-being. But what was most, comforting to hear was him acknowledging that he didn't know any better. Was him on his deathbed telling us that was the best I could do with what I knew to be right at the time. So some of these challenges are not really coming from people say, I want to intentionally hurt the people. That is why grooming people from when they are young and still impressionable has become such a passion for me. And just before I close, I would like to share some of the strengths that I draw from that help us to minimize or to prevent some of these challenges throughout our life journeys. And I know you know about the principle of Ubuntu, which emphasizes empathy, which emphasizes sharing and cooperation as an effort to resolving common problems. I find that where communities practice Ubuntu, there's always a safe net where when challenges come, people have got something to fall back on. And that increases their resilience. It increases the social capital, which are both noted as important aspects that help us bounce back to some sort of experiencing some type of trauma. And I think we all have an obligation just to incorporate those values as part of strengthening our family units, as part of strengthening our communities. One of the questions that I get asked the most is, what about the legal systems? I mean, despite many countries' adoption of constitutional democracies that support gender equality, feminist judiciaries that are intended to bring fairness to matters concerning women and girls, and a whole lot of international organizations with similar mandates, we find that the implementation process is always stifled. And the question that I ask myself then is, why are we not seeing jails? Because I'll give an example with what we experienced in South Africa during the hard lockdown. The scourge of gender-based violence increased drastically. And a lot of people are saying there needs to be quicker means to deal with the cases and put people to jail. But my question was, who raised those men who are behaving in manners like that? I also watched what happened at the Capitol Hill not so long ago, and we are very quick to say, prosecute, take to jail. But then you ask, how did people even end up to believe that it is normal to behave in ways that are unacceptable, at least to most people who are deemed to be, reasonable? So the answer for me comes back to our family units. And I think we need to do a lot of work with our youth to ensure that not only do we have policies, but we also have training and retraining and all conversations, which is what I'm trying to open with the schools in Gauteng right now, as we've realized that most of our youth do not have platforms in their homes to talk about the things that are bothering them, that affect them, to experience many kind of traumas. So to me, because I strongly believe that if they can be raised well, they can turn out to be better human beings. But then, who needs to do the work? I find that the advocacy work as well has to be done by us women, because we are the caregivers, we are the home builders. So I really wish to hold hands with all of you, my sisters, as we raise better young and women, and prayerfully leave this planet better than we found it. It cannot be that there's so many stories of pain and trauma that are told, and there's so many other possible ways to deal with what is happening around us, and we do not do it. So it is really exciting to be here. I'm happy to share my story. I'm happy to share.
Okay. So that was the end of our presenter coming to us all the way from South Africa. Thank you so much for sharing your nuggets of wisdom. The biggest take home is really, we are the mothers who are raising the men who abuse their wives and their partners. And I think we do have to take responsibility for that and try and address it and stop these things from happening before they happen. Gail, what was your take on that last presentation?
We definitely need to take our youth under our wings, and as the speaker rightfully said, we need to train them and retrain them. But what was really a light bulb moment for me was when she was speaking about the boys and how we need to steer them, and she was speaking about a father that actually came forth and said he did not know any better. And the learning for me from that is we really need to take our youth under our wings and steer them so that they don't have the very same answer at a later stage when they become parents.
Very true. Very, very true. So, Gail, I know that you have to drop off now. Your power will disappear any moment because of the load shedding in South Africa. So we will continue. I will share the next video. And this is Mary Axnes. Mary is one of our tribe. She has presented many times before, but I wanted to share a interview I did with her some time back. Mary, thank you for being a part of the tribe, sharing your wisdom with us. As always, it's a great pleasure to connect and communicate with you. Every single time I talk to Mary, I learn something completely new. So, Gail, I will see you tomorrow morning. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here and supporting the Herstory movement today.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Take care. Beautiful Wellington, New Zealand. It gives me great pleasure to introduce yet another phenomenal woman coming to us all the way from the United States. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Herstory TV. Please tell us your name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hey, Gertrude, it's so good to see you. My name is Mary Chan Axnes. I am living in Atlanta, Georgia. How old I am? I'm 69 and going on 70, and I'm originally born and raised in Hong Kong.
Fantastic. Tell us your story, Mary.
My story basically is, it is not okay for women not to be able to speak up and speak out. And part of that go back to my childhood. And as we were sharing, the moment I grew up suddenly was when I realized all the things that happened during the war, what happened to my father, his temperament, even my mother suddenly changed because of the, you know, national issue, famine in China, and business failure from a very loving father. Suddenly, almost overnight, he has become a violent man. Nobody understood him. His voice was stolen too. And so I never really knew what happened. But as part of my story was about forgiveness, and so I noticed that at a child that age, I said, that wasn't my dad. Something has happened to him. So I'm just going to have to let him go and forgive him. From that moment on, I learned many lessons about forgiveness.
Fantastic. You eventually ended up in the United States. What
Yes.
was your journey?
Well, my journey was that because of his business failure, I was not able to continue my education. You know, most countries' education costs a lot, and you value it. And I had to quit school when I was second year in high school. I was raised in the convent. Now, to be able to go to a convent school is beyond a privilege. It's very expensive. And we couldn't continue because of economic. And the few years in between, I actually started working. And the year that JFK, President Kennedy, was shot, all I hear on the radio was, it's not what you can, it's not what the country can do for you, but what you can do for the country. And being a person raised in the background of being highly responsible, I said, oh, Hong Kong is a colony. I wanted a country. And in the US dollar, it says, in God we trust. I said, I trust. And so I decided to come to United States. Too simple, but it's very profound for a teenager.
Wow. So where did you find yourself in the US, and how did your life unfold when you got there?
Oh, when I was in Hong Kong through various jobs, I, for whatever reason, I speak English well. And I became a tour guide of Hong Kong. And from there, I have, you know, every other week, new group came from the US. And from there, I met many people. And everyone says, because I'm so petite, they said, why did you come to the US? You know, and I said, if I ever come to the US, I want to go back to school, finish my education, and maybe get married. Well, this couple, they were not missionaries or anything, but they have a heart. They were actually looking for somebody. They were not even meant to be on this trip. And we're still friends up to this day. And he's a dentist and she's a nurse, and she's a Bible teacher for women. And she said, we've been looking for somebody like you. And then he says, I just love your teeth. And that's how the relationship started. And after a couple of years, I expressed that I would like to go to United States, hope to pursue my education. And from there, they kind of helped me, got over to the States, and I became their live-in nanny, but mainly like a daughter. So I got my second dad.
Fantastic. It's amazing how in life you bump into people who can change the trajectory of your life forever.
Yeah. Yes.
And I know that a lot of your work is in the healing world. How did you stumble across that profession, and what do you do?
Well, as far as my profession, I've always been in, I love makeup. Remember, I was raised in a convent. You cannot wear makeup.
Yes.
Everything has to be black and white, including your underwear. So what happened was I said, I just wanted to wear makeup and someday have sex and have babies. So I don't belong to the convent. And with that said, I just dream about making myself pretty, because when I was born, not being the oldest as a boy was a big disappointment to my dad. And he would tell me, you will go to the UN, you will be an ambassador. But I'm a girl. And so, and also I was born premature, therefore I wasn't supposed to live. But somehow I was spared and I became his favorite. But coming here, started to go to school, a whole new world opened up, and there's just opportunity after opportunity to let me go to school almost for free.
It sounds to me like you grabbed those opportunities. Some people will go to a new country, opportunities are around them, but they don't grab those opportunities. Why was education so important to you?
Well, because in the convent school, I was beaten to a pulp. And you talk about religion it's the kids, but a relationship was what I was looking for. And those relationships came to me in the most meaningful ways. And that's always been what happened to me. And even if I would just skip a little bit of detail, one time I was very ill and I was miraculously healed. In fact, the doctor basically gave me 3 days to live and says, this pre-lymphoma condition is going to kill you. And I couldn't speak. There was no air. And literally I said, if you're God, you better do something now. And I made a lot of declaration with imagination that I will see my kids get married. I will see my grandkids. And it's a combination of, you know, your soul and your being, your heart, your mind, all focus in, I will be well. And sure enough, I got out of the hospital, no surgery, no medication. And from there, I started this journey of looking to see what is it that I can do to activate healing in the body. So I am professionally a naturopathic doctor.
Wow, what a journey. So a lot of illnesses are manifestations of emotional, traumatic experiences that people have and hold within their bodies. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I know that's a large part of your work.
Yes, when I see, especially women and men too, you talk about able to speak up and speak out. We, as whether it's a physician or a teaching doctor, the most important thing in life for me, as far as I go to sleep very satisfied, is when I come to a place that I ask the person, talk to me. Talk to me. Sometimes I get to know exactly what happened, and then I will say, I'm working for you, but then we're going to work together, and then you're going to be so aware of your body that you will tell me what you need. And so it becomes a journey every patient.
Wow.
And as you know, inner healing is the soul area, the mind, the emotions. And when emotions shut down, it really affects the gut. You talk about small intestine overgrowth, bacteria overgrowth. The food we eat aren't the same, and people don't know how to eat, what to eat, and why our body needs the food. It's mainly physiology.
Wow. So tell me, what is one worthwhile investment that you've made in your life, whether it's time, money, energy, that has changed your life forever?
Worthwhile, I would say that I am relentless about what I say yes to. And it's been many events. I don't see failure as permanent, it's an event. So with that in mind, everything I do contribute to somehow gonna pass it on to other people. It has to be win-win. And we had talked a little bit about it, that of course right now I've got two precious grandkids. Everything I do, I wanted to be a journal, which I wrote a book and launched a children's book called The Story of My China Vase, because I'm married to multiracial, family. And so the most worthwhile thing is doing something meaningful and leaving a legacy. I always have that in my mind, no matter what I do, whether it's how well I eat so that I can pass it on to somebody, because ultimately we influence other people.
Yeah.
Hopefully for good.
Yeah. So what is something that you believe in strongly that other people think you're crazy about?
Oh, I have to say, I had so many awesome encounter with the God of representing Father, because I miss my father so much. And I had a taste of what a loving father he was.
Mm.
And then I was given a chance to live with a family, and he was such a good father figure to me. And I yearn for other people to be able to capture that, but to see God as a loving father. He would leap over a wall just to find me, to heal me. And not only that, I get a chance to even sing about. I wrote a couple of songs, how he restored my marriage. As long as I keep giving out, he keep depositing in. And very few people know that, because they have religion, ritual. It's so disappointing.
Mm.
But when you have a deep relationship that you're not alone, no matter where you are, where there's only 3 days left in life, or, hey, pandemic, I had no fear. I had no fear. And so I may not finish everything I do. I remember my father and even my old pastor says, hey, you may not get to the moon, but you grab all the stars.
On the way there, I love that. So if you were to go back to your younger self, from everything that life has told you or taught you, what 3 nuggets of wisdom would you say to her?
Because in my culture, it's not okay to express ourselves with emotions. I would say speak up, which I have been part of my journey of inner healing, is speak up about, I feel, I want, I would have liked to have this done. That's very healing. That's part of why we were talking about writing is so important. Journaling. I started by journaling, and here I'm on a writing journey with Gertrude and many other people. To me, that's on the way to the moon.
I love that.
And then the other two is just, again, leaving a legacy. My grandchildren are so receptive. And in my talk, in my book or story, I did talk about what are the lies in the life. When you hear something, can you discern Is that a lie?
Mhm.
They're very, very young. And so we would make up games. And someday when I'm in front of an audience, I'm going to practice with them, because when we get too old, we think we know it all. When
Yes.
the new things keep coming in, and when you know that's a lie, that's a deception, then you can receive wisdom.
Oh, I love that. Now, let me teleport you into your future.
Oh, okay.
If time was an illusion and your past and your present and your future existed in the same timeline, and you can have a conversation with the future you 20 years from now, based on how you're living your life, what would you say to her?
Well done. I didn't waste a moment. It may be late, but that's not an issue.
And it's never too late.
It's never too late. And also, having a growth mindset is more important than anything. I'm grabbing stars.
Oh, I love it. I don't think I will ever forget that quote. Grab those stars along the way to the moon. It is so beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Mary, for coming online and sharing your nuggets of wisdom. I want to end with one final question. And it's something you said earlier about forgiveness.
Yes.
A lot of people get stuck because of family relationships that have gone wrong. What has forgiveness done for you?
Oh, big deal. Your growth really depends on an attitude of forgiving. Because it's so easy to take in offenses, you know, especially women and even little children, because there's no way they can understand. They have no grip, no way to filter their feelings and their emotions. So I will just quote some of my colleague doctors in naturopath and actually PhDs and very famous doctors. They said, if you don't forgive, that hook eventually will manifest in disease in your body. Mm-hmm. You're the one that's paying and eating poison while the other person don't even know about it.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is you receive that gift of the kind of salvation that we receive and release the person from your hook of judgment. And the minute you do that, and I've personally seen it, I've experienced it, I have like windows and big doors of opportunity open up to me for that one act of emotionally letting somebody off my judgment. That's very deep. And it can be very profound. There's many ways of teaching it. I love teaching it because as a pastor, I talk about inner healing. You want true healing? You let other people and bless them. Let other people off your meat hook. It's like a hook. And you can't grow. That's how come, you know, in my husband's job, he's a palliative physician. Mm-hmm. We get to see people die in the most grotesque way and in the most peaceful way. Mm-hmm. You tell me, which one do you want?
Peace.
You know?
Everybody would say peace.
To me, it's literally better than paying your insurance ahead of time. Practical.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Mary. It's been such an honor and a pleasure to interview you today. Your words of inspiration will go out into the world. Thank you for coming on the Herstory TV and sharing your wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Gertrude. It's been a pleasure.
Take care. Bye, everybody. See you in the next episode. Thank you, Mary. Very, very
If your brain is a record of the
words.
past,
We
And
always forget that forgiveness is the key. Forgiveness does more for you than it does for the other person. So that was absolutely awesome. We will move on to our next presentation. Again, another amazing lady sharing her nuggets of wisdom, again from the United States.
Hello, my name is
Tell
Anna.
everybody your full name, because I don't want you to butcher it and mispronounce it. Tell us where you're from, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Yes, my name is Lana Pitolkina. I live in Salt Lake City in the United States right now, but I was born in Estonia. And my whole life is filled with very difficult, very traumatic events. I'll tell you just one so that you have a glimpse. From the time when I was about 4 and all of my childhood, I had a crazy, crazy dream. I wanted to learn how to skate on the ice. I saw figure skaters around me and I thought, oh, I can do that. I didn't have an opportunity to do it until I moved to the United States when I was already an adult, almost 30. But, you know, dreams die hard. So I took several classes and I was so passionate about going after my dream that I learned to skate, not just well, but exceptionally well. So imagine an adult, grown-up woman who takes the classes for the first time and suddenly starts jumping several rotations in the air, spinning, and then competing, and then skating at the opening ceremony for the Olympic Games. 2002 Olympic Games were in Salt Lake City, where I was honored to present the opening ceremonies. So dream comes true, right? On top of the world. I got invited to be an actress at Theater on Ice. People were asking me for autographs. I mean, I had a life.
Wow.
Famous, yeah. I had stories in newspapers, magazines. I was on TV. I was in theater. I was happy. It wasn't even about money or being popular. I was happy. I made my dream, my childhood, since I was 4, come true. I was living the best life. And then when I was practicing one of those spins, I'm sure you saw on TV.
Yes.
With the, just like, with the corner of my eye, I saw a little girl skating towards me. So I knew right away I had to stop the rotation. And if you've never had the spin in the air, you probably don't know, but time stops.
Yes.
Time stops in the rotation. It's completely different physics and emotional atmosphere when you are in the jump. And so I had only less than half a second to stop the rotation. How I had to do that? I had to completely uncross my arms, uncross my hands, and uncross my legs. And with the blade of my left skate, I sliced my right foot.
Oh.
Sliced it, fell, blood on the ice. I don't want you to hear the gory details. What happened after that? Not only was I not able to skate, the source of my happiness, my life, my job, my professional, my everything, completely gone. So I can't skate.
Oh.
I can't walk. I can't even walk. And I am in horrible, horrible pain all the time, day and night, week, month, and nothing helps. So I go to Western medicine and I say, please, please, please do something. I can't take it. It's suffering. It's something that I can't handle anymore. Yeah. I'm in pain all the time. They give me pills that don't work. Pain is still there. I go to alternative healthcare providers, alternative medicine.
Yes.
Shamans, healers, you name it. Nothing works. Nothing works. And because I am in such a horrible pain all the time, for such a long time, months now, I can't handle it anymore. And so I say to myself, this is not worth living. This life is not worth living. I want it to be over.
Hmm.
I want to die. And so I had a plan how to end my life.
Oh boy.
It was no, I couldn't suffer a second longer. And the weirdest thing happened. If you've ever read about near-death experiences or heard about out-of-body experiences, you know, the spiritual stuff that you probably maybe watched in a movie but never seriously thought about.
Yes.
It happened to me. I left my physical body as if it didn't exist. And that essence that people call spirit, soul, energy, it doesn't matter. I have goosebumps as I'm telling the story. I wish I could relive it every day. This essence connected with everything that is. You can say higher consciousness.
Yeah.
You can say God. You can say nature. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are. There is something that we can't explain using words. We just can't. We have that intuitive feeling that we call heart. Sometimes your heart opens. This is not the physical heart. This is something that is not, we can't touch it.
It's not tangible.
No. And so this is when suddenly I started communicating, again, energy, higher knowledge, higher consciousness, spirits, souls. I started learning things that I don't know how to explain. The words, I can use the words, we are all one. We are all connected. I can say I felt bliss, but none of it is enough. None of it can bring back to people who never experienced it what I did. It's almost impossible. If you ever had the best dream in your life where you felt completely fulfilled, connected to everyone, including people, animal, planet, trees, nature, when you felt blissful on top of the world, do you call it the seventh heaven? I don't know. And you knew your life's purpose.
Yeah.
You knew each person's purpose on this planet, that it all makes sense, that every suffering is not useless. It has this meaning and purpose, no matter how devastating it is. It is not useless. And that we are all one.
We're all connected.
All connected. All connected. And bam, I reconnected with my body.
Right.
And my life was never the same.
So you came back with all of these knowings.
Yes, yes. And the same second I came back, when I realized that I'm back in the physical body, my whole face was covered. I thought, who poured water on my face? And then I realized I was crying. I couldn't stop crying, but it was not from pain. It was gratitude. I kept saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for that gift. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to experience this. And I promise, I promise, I will teach, I will share, I will let others know. I will not keep it to myself. Yes. I don't belong to myself anymore. No.
Oh, wow. Wow. So what have you done with that gift since?
I began writing. Every day, writing the stories that suddenly started coming to me. The crazy thing, especially if you don't believe in this kind of things, you call it woo-woo or
yes.
New Age, or maybe weird. She lost her head, cuckoo, head, there are many words. Trust me, heard them all. Heard them all. Don't get offended, because I was that person. I was raised an atheist. I had to pass an exam in my school to prove that there is no God. I had to. It was part of the curriculum. So I got A. I was awesome.
That's so crazy.
Until it happened to me, until I experienced, believe me, it's weirder than you even think. In my dreams, after that experience, in my dreams, I started getting messages and information. You go to sleep and you sleep well, and then suddenly you feel as if you're awake, but you're not.
Yes.
All of the sensations are the same as in real life. And someone comes to you, a person, or even an animal, and tells you, hey, when you wake up, here's a book we'd like you to read, and gives you the name of the book or a place, location, the name of the person you're supposed to meet. And so you wake up, you write it down on a piece of paper, and you're like, there is no way in the world this is I have scientific mind. I'm going to Google it right now, what I wrote on the piece of paper, and I'm going to find out that this is all nonsense.
Not true.
I have to have proof. So I type it. Oops. This book exists. Never heard about it before. You know what? It's your subconscious.
Yeah.
All right. How about the name of the person on a different island that you're supposed to meet? Okay, that's weirder, because how did my subconscious, unconscious, call it wherever you want, learn that in a dream? How about seeing the future and then having proof that it happened? For some time you can be skeptical, but then you kind of start using it. Not for me, but for others.
Yes.
If I get warnings for others that something is going to happen, I will call them. Doesn't matter what they think about me, I will say, hey, I'm weird. I get these dreams, and sometimes they tend to come true. How about you kind of pay attention to what's happening around you?
Yes.
Just, So after I started writing down story after story, I realized it became a book.
Okay.
So I published it, and crazy story. People love it. I wanted to share weirdest of the weirdest. You can call it coincidences.
Yes.
You can call them synchronicities. Okay.
Whatever you want to call them.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. When you look at life with fascinating eyes, when you wake up with a smile, when your heart beats so hard that it's ready to jump out of your chest.
Yes.
Love life, not for yourself, but because people around you are responding to your
energy.
Energy. What's that called? Zing. I don't know how to call it. There is something that people just love to have around them. And that is being alive. Not because you're physically, we're all clearly breathing. If you're watching it, you're breathing. There is so much more to being alive. And that is knowing that every breath you take is not for yourself, but all of us are breathing together. All of us together.
That's beautiful. So we are an organism. It's really interesting that you bring that up, because one of the philosophies that I teach is called Ubuntu. And it's an African philosophy that says we are one, that the human race is an organism. So if I cut my finger and I start to bleed, my white blood cells will rush to that point to heal it. as I'm holding up my hand right now to the camera, you can't see my legs, but my legs and my hand are all connected, and that's what humanity is all about. So you've really given me another way of illustrating this philosophy, because it's so difficult to make people get the fact that we are parts of a whole. There's no you, there's no me, there's only us. And that's the underlying theme of the Herstory conference. That's the underlying reason why I'm hosting this conference globally in 1,000 locations, to wake more people up to this idea that if you're not okay, I'm not okay, and vice versa. That we're one, we're an organism, and the more people who can wake up to it, the sooner we will evolve as a race. So thank you for bringing that to this webinar today, because I've really been trying to find a way of articulating it, and you've just come in with a different perspective, but we're all saying the same thing. So I'm going to end our podcast with one thing that I would like you to share. You know, I believe that time is an illusion, and that our past, our present, and our future exist on the same timeline. So if you were going to go to your younger self right now and impart the words of wisdom, the learnings, the teachings that you have accumulated up till now, what would you say to your younger self?
Never stop playing. Never grow up. Not in a way that you will be always a child, no. But each year, play on a different level. Doesn't matter if you're 4 or 94. Play is the essence that makes us come into this wonderful idea of, by the way, you can't play by yourself.
No, you need others.
Born, you need others to play. And what a great purpose it is to walk through life playing with others. Playing. We go to work. Just saying is already heavy. Yeah, heavy. I have to work to make a living. If we completely change that perspective, completely, I share my gifts. How about that?
Yes.
I share my gifts with the world, and people appreciate it and share back. Completely. You will wake up, I swear, wake up tomorrow with the idea that you don't have to work. You only share your gift, and in a playful way.
Yes, it's all about having fun.
Yeah.
And then life becomes a game. We don't take things too seriously, because I think a lot of us do.
Yeah.
And like you said, you breathe every waking moment more consciously.
Yeah.
About being fully awake in your sleeping and waking hours. Wow, I can't wait to meet you at the Herstory conference. Thank you so much for doing the podcast with me today.
Thank you for hosting.
An absolute honor to meet you. Thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
Bye. There we go. Yet another amazing guest. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence, bringing us all of your wisdom, and a real reminder to all of us to be conscious of things we don't really know. Be aware that there are things way beyond what we see with our naked eyes. There's so much more to this universe, to this earth, than we can see. So how much do you believe in the spirit world? That is definitely something we can all take into consideration and learn from. So now we have yet another amazing speaker coming to us all the way from Australia, who has another fascinating story. And I'm sure we are going to learn so much more from her as well. So let me cue up the video and enjoy.
Thank you, everyone. I'd like to just reiterate that, yes, I am a chemical engineer with over 15 years experience in the mining and manufacturing industry. I'm really passionate about inspiring girls to get into engineering. And I believe girls are, women make great engineers, and there are not enough women in here in the industry. And so I'm really passionate to break those myths, bust those barriers that make people think that engineering is not for women, that engineering is boring, that it's dirty. And I've recently created a series called Chronicles of a Female Engineer, which goes through these sort of things, talks about a day in the life. I am passionate about engineering, and I suppose plenty of people may have different tales to tell about why they're passionate about engineering. But I wanted to let you know that I almost lost it all. And I'm here to tell you that story today. I'll take you back to the 11th of the 11th in 2011. It was Remembrance Day. And boy, do I remember it. It was my boyfriend's birthday at the time, and I had planned a romantic retreat. We were living in Sydney at the time, and I had planned some horse riding, some go-karting, a cabin in the woods. And at the time I was driving, I'd hired a rental car, and the sun was shining, the music was pumping, the vibes were really good. And I was driving, and he said he had to make a pit stop. He had told a friend that he was going to collect a parcel for him, and we needed to stop and collect it. It was inconvenient, but I stopped. He felt around and he didn't have his ID on him, and he said, well, can you go get it? I thought, okay, I've got mine. So I went on in and I went to collect the package. It was strange, it took a while. The lady said there was something, there was plenty of packages in the back, can I go get a coffee? I said, yeah, sure, no worries. Went and got a coffee, thought about all the things I had planned, came back in. It ended up being about 15 or so minutes for them to find the package. I signed for it and went out, and I was greeted by something very strange as I got out of that shopping center. Not only was my boyfriend not coming to collect the package for me that I'd collected on his behalf, but instead there was the undercover police officers. You see, the package that I had collected, not only was it being tracked, but it contained illegal substances, drugs. I thought, what the heck? This is strange. Like, there must be a mistake, right? I was calm, I was collected. I went over to the police station and I thought, well, if I just explain to them that this is a big, big mistake and how I got to be there, that they would clear it all up. Wrong. I didn't plead my Fifth Amendment. I didn't ask for a lawyer because, like I said, I thought I could simply let them know that this wasn't the case. Their answer was, unfortunately, this cannot be resolved at this time. You will need to see the judge. You'll need to go for a hearing. And so I spent the night in the detention center that night. My mind was cycling. I was trying to replay the scene in my mind, wonder how I got here, wondering how this would all play out, but at least it was just one night. Just one night, and it would all be fixed in the morning. I somehow got some sleep and woke up in the morning. And being at the detention center, I'd had a remote call with the legal aid officer, the legal aid lawyer who was representing me on my behalf. She had probably 2 minutes to discuss with me what she had read from the file. And I found myself watching a small screen and seeing people having their cases discussed. And I was like, this is just surreal. And as quickly as it had begun, I heard the judge say the dreaded words, bail denied. What did you say? Bail denied. And I found myself in a paddy wagon, a police car, being ferried across to the maximum security female prison in Sydney, Australia. I was scared. I was afraid. I was embarrassed. I felt like a failure. I had failed my parents, my mum and my dad had sent me to Australia for a 4-year degree in engineering. I had failed my family, who I now had to contact and talk to and tell them that I'd been caught up. I was now embroiled in a legal battle, that I had to clear my name, that I needed a lawyer. I had failed my work. What would happen with that now? And most of all, I'd failed myself. Had 7 years of engineering all been for nothing? And in fact, how would I tell people in here that I was an engineer? I'm pretty sure there wouldn't be any others in there. Who would I trust? And I went through a series of questions. I mean, for a stretch, there was no TV, there was no Christmas presents. My birthday was spent in there. There was no New Year's Eve celebrations. In fact, I had a wedding, one of my best friend's wedding in a couple of weeks, and I couldn't even send my apologies for that. And so I want to take you through, I suppose, looking in hindsight, the lessons that I learned out of that journey. And I know many of you on this call, I hope that many of you have not been to prison, that you won't find yourself in this situation. But my story is really for those of you who find yourselves in unexpected situations. Perhaps you're a mother who has done the right things, have raised your kids 10, 20, 30 years, and all of a sudden, they may find themselves in jail. You may be a mother who's been trying so hard to get pregnant, and you finally do, and you get that diagnosis that changes everything. Now, I call it my 4 B's method, and the first one really is around bravely ask for help. I had to bravely ask for help a lot of the time, a lot of times through this journey. And the first was when I had to make the call to my brother. And I'm sure there was nowhere to hide, because when he answered that call, he heard, "You are receiving a collect call from Silverwater Prison. Do you accept?" So there's nowhere to hide. I had to tell him that, look, I have found myself here and I need to get out. I had to ask for help. I had to ask for help to create money where there was no money, to make bail money, and to continue to fight the legal fees thereafter. I had to ask for help from my friends, family, colleagues, to write character references, to help demonstrate that it was out of character. And I had to ask for help when I called work. I told them that I was in a legal battle, that I was working to clear my name, that it was a big mistake. And they said 3 words that changed everything. They said, "You're still welcome." And that was something I needed to hear. You're still welcome. I know we've probably all felt the fear of failure, the fear of not being loved, the fear of not being worthy, the fear of not belonging. But when I heard those words, you're still welcome, I held on to them. And I decided that I was going to give everything back to the community, to the industry that kept me going, that made it possible for me to make a way, to clear my name, to go back to work. And there's a few other things that kept me going in there. Writing letters to my friends, my family. My sister used to tell me what is happening in the Real Housewives of Atlanta and Keeping Up with Kardashians. I would go to chapel on a Friday, and there was a verse that kept me going. For those of you who read the Bible, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a hope and a future. And I believed that I had a hope, that I had a future, and that I was going to get out of there and it was going to be okay. The second step is to break through your barriers. I had physical barriers at the time, but many of us have mental barriers that keep us stuck. Perhaps you have a job that you hate. Perhaps you have a marriage that has seen better days. It's possible to view that situation through a positive lens. I like to look at the glass half full versus half empty, and to find something to be grateful for. You see, had that been in a Zimbabwean prison, which is where I'm originally from, things could have been a whole lot different. I even cringe now when I think of the stale food, the rats or the squalor, the conditions that it could have been. Thin blankets. So I was grateful. I was grateful to have access to an Australian prison. The third one is to bolster your strengths. What can you be grateful for? I got a job when I was in prison. I like to think of it as I was working for Qantas, but I wasn't really. I had to grab a full garbage bag full of headsets, the headsets you use on the airlines to listen to music, watch a movie. And I had to untangle the cords, remove the used earmuffs, place a fresh earmuff onto it, and place a UNICEF pamphlet into that plastic bag with the headset and seal it closed. 10 of those headsets would make, I think, 10 or 20 cents. It wasn't much, but I felt resourceful. It made me feel like I was giving back. I was making a difference. I was contributing in a way. And I really want you to be able to clarify your strengths. What can you do? What is working well in your life? What are you passionate about? What can you dedicate your life to that brings you joy? I have now started to use the last B, which is build your brand. And it's about going on a journey, documenting your journey, journaling, celebrating what's working, looking back on what hasn't worked well. Because I believe that life doesn't really happen to us. Life happens for us. And so when I'm able to now inspire girls to get into engineering and empower those of us who are here to stay, I look back and I know that I almost lost it all. But I know that I am welcome. I want others to feel welcome. And I want you to know today, if you leave without anything else, that your past doesn't determine your future. You can rewrite your story even today. Surround yourself with people that will empower you, that will cheer you on, that will help you make your dreams come true. because I believe that without a setback, they cannot be come back. Thank you.
Wow, what a powerful, powerful story. I'll just invite my next guest to join me for a few minutes. That was Brenda. She had a traumatic experience having had drugs planted on her by a boyfriend, ended up in prison for a few months for a crime she didn't commit. Fortunately, she was vindicated. She's back at work. She's an engineer. And her story is a wake-up call to young women to be careful about the people you're with, not to be so trusting and thinking that everything is fine. You know, if you meet someone new, make sure you have a way of vetting who that person is, because they could take you down and destroy your life, literally, like what had almost happened to Brenda. She's very, very fortunate and very, very lucky. So Janice, I'm not sure if you managed to catch any of that presentation, if you have any comments, any reflections before we move on.
No, it was wonderful. I caught the end of it, and just hearing of her strength and then her vulnerability to own what has happened, and then how she embraces and now encourages so many others to move forward. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, no, absolutely amazing. So we're going to go on to your presentation now. Before we do, let me introduce you formally. I'm going to read the bio that you sent us. For over 11 years. Now, you've used J. Leanne. Is that how you're referred to, or
that
do you like
that is how I'm referred to? Janice is my government name. That's what my parents named me. And as I continue to evolve into these things, my middle name is Leanne. So I've literally put them together as J. Leanne.
Aha. Okay. Yeah, because I saw that and I got a little bit confused.
That's
so
okay.
It's okay if I refer to you as Janice, or what do you prefer?
It's Janice. If you got,
Okay.
it's Janice.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'll say Janice. I'll start again. For 11 years, Janice served individuals in the nonprofit social service and mental health field. She's developed a passion and an expertise in equipping others with successful skills for lifelong change. She's a trusted life advocate and certified stress coach, known for her compassion, high energy, and transformational results. She's also the founder of Hidden Figures, with a Z at the end, or a Z, as you would say in the United States, a faith-fueled activewear line and wellness enterprise focused on empowering large-bodied men and women, size L to 5X, and the author of the ebook Heavy Load. In her book, she details how releasing weights and eliminating waste can yield not only physical change for her 150-pound and counting, but lifelong transformation. She spent several years being transformed and is now dedicating her time and gift to helping others do the same. She's not only a speaker and a certified coach, but she's also a devoted godmother and a creative writer. In her free time, you will find her singing, enjoying life with loved ones, and getting a massage. I'm with you on that one.
They're a must.
God, family, and friends, service to others, humor, empathy, and the well-being are major in her life. Welcome to our stage. Welcome to our tribe. We are really looking forward to hearing your story today. You know, the issue that you're going to be talking about today affects many people all over the world. I was one of those people, so we'll have a little bit of a catch up once we've watched the video.
Sure.
Of what most would call
normal. And I say that in quotation marks because we know we can debate that, right? But I lived in a life what most would call normal. Two-parent home, had a brother. I was the youngest. It looked like peachy creams and candy canes on the outside, okay? Middle to upper class family, successful in school, doing well at church, as that's part of my family dynamic. My mother was a musician, my father was a singer. He was in a university, so he's very affluent, teacher, educator, advisor, and it was just the perfect family. At least that's what people would say, and that's at least what people thought. And so when we think about that, and when I even said that, that comes to mind that it really taught something. It really made me learn how to what? Be the great pretender. Because the reality was, it was a lie. Everything wasn't great. Everything wasn't peaches and cream. Everything wasn't hanky dory. But what it taught, because of the reception that was received, was that that was how you needed to present yourself. Perfect. I don't know that that is healthy. I have learned actually that that is not healthy, but that is what I did, and that is how I lived. And I was a very great cover upper. I was a very great perfectionist. And I wouldn't say perfectionist because I was perfect. I was just trying to shoot to please, people please. It was great and big and in my life it really really was. And so most of my life, what was I done? I was either told or expected to be. And I don't know if that relates to anything or anyone else, but it is something that I struggled with throughout my life. And speaking of life, my childhood, I did grow up in a Christian home, but I also went to Christian school with growing up. And then third grade came. And when third grade came, I was introduced to public school, and which was a jolt and a change for me. I was glad for the experience, but nonetheless, there were some things that were more sheltered and expected in the standard where I was and was not there now. So it was almost like a free for all. In that free for all, I was not ready. I was not ready. Why was I not ready? Because at that particular time, I had self esteem issues. It was around that 10ish, 11ish that I began to increase my weight. And then before you know it, I was classified as obese. I was classified as just unhealthy and one more than one ways more than one ways. And so because of that, I really began to struggle in school, not academically, but I struggled mentally because of the pressure that was being put on me, the expectation that I was to be. Not only that, but so if I didn't get it at school where I was expected to be and do a certain thing so I can play a certain sport, so I can get certain friends, so I can be certain things. I was getting it at home. I was getting it at home because I didn't tell you this, but my dad was a marathon runner. And honestly, though he's in his, actually, he'll be 70 this year. He still would run as much as he could. He has had knee replacement because that cartilage due to running, but he cannot do it as much. But he still tries as much as he can to do 8 miles. So that's the kind of pressure, if that gives you an image of what I've been dealing with. And I think because of that, I found myself rebelling. I found myself very abandoned, very rejected, very confused in my identity of who I was. And I share this because it's very easy when things look picture perfect that people assume that people are good. And so what I learned was mask up and look well. As long as you mask up and look well, no one would ask you questions. And the reality is they didn't. But I was hurting. I was screaming. I was crying out, wanting for someone, something to acknowledge me, not for the things that I could do, not for the talents. I could sing, and so people wanted me to sing. I could play. People wanted me to play. I could be the one that was like that. I always had a more caring attitude, and so it was me, the one that was everybody was calling for advice and for the things. But then in all of that, I was carrying. I was carrying weight. I was carrying what everybody else wanted for me, and I never had a voice. And so I lost my voice throughout this process. And even when I speak about abandonment and take it back, and I think about how I was raised, and though my parents are still together to this day, and 40 plus years, they have their dynamic of how they live. But throughout it, because my uh, dad was in academia and universities, he was not home very often. And I really saw that affect me when it came to identity and development and how those things were. So emotionally, mentally, I was not getting the reinforcement. And then, so on top of that, let's talk about the boyfriends. I told you that I was getting labeled as obese very early in my life. And so because of that, nobody there wanted me. And I get it. Now it's like big girl season, everybody is feeling it. But in that day, in that hour, it was not being felt. It was actually being disgusted. I was actually being talked about and bullied so bad. Not just that, but we go to family. I guess what my nickname was? Butterball. Butterball. And I would be tormented because one of my family members would tell me, a turtle's gonna come out of your stomach when you sleep. And I tell you I can't tell you how long, I had dreams about a turtle coming out of my stomach. And I'm thinking of all the names to call me, why Butterball? But they said that it was Butterball because when it came to how I was built, that my stomach and the roundness of it was the biggest thing on my body. And so I learned how to just mask up. I learned how to shut down. I learned how to carry the weight of the world. And so I started to notice that those loads that I was carrying was really affecting my health, was really affecting my outlook, was really affecting how I was. And it wasn't allowing me to be authentically me. And authentic living requires us to know, to own, and to love ourselves. These were things I was not getting. These were things I was not looking at. These were things I was not paying attention to. So, what did it for me? What caused me enabled me to say authentically, which is who you really are? What caused me to tap into authentic living? What was that flip in that switch? And you won't believe it, or you may, but it was when I came into the realization my second year in college, because I did finish my bachelor's, I have my master's, and I aim for my doctorate. But when I was my second year of undergraduate, I attempted suicide. No one knew until I was in the hospital and they were trying to save my life. And that was a pivotal change in my life. And that was when I woke up to saying, you know what, this self esteem thing, this is my belief about my own self. This is not what someone else inflicts on me. This is something I believe about me. And so what I had to do was ask myself a question. Do you feel you are being or free to be yourself on a daily basis? And when I was able to answer that question with the truth of no, no, I don't feel like that. I don't feel like I'm getting that. That is when I began to be able to target what I needed to target to wake up to me. Because guess who had to live with who they had to live with every day? Guess who had to live with the thoughts? Guess who had to live with the physical body? Guess who had to do all of that? Me. I had to do it. And so I woke up to saying, okay, well, this person may be saying this about you. This person may not be doing this for you. This person may not. And so when are you going to wake up to realize that you have to fulfill those things within you? How are you going to do that? And with that, I said, okay, authentic living is knowing, owning, and loving who you are. This is about knowing, owning, and loving who I am. How do I get to know me? Literally, it's going to sound like the most simple yet difficult because we don't do it thing. And that is time. Take time with to me. I have to sit in it, not from a negative space, not from a negative place, but from an evaluation like I would if I was dating somebody, evaluation like I would with my creator. How do I get to know me? I spend time with for real me, asking those deep questions, getting into it, owning. I gotta own me. This is what caused me to release 180 pounds and still counting because I got 100 more to go. Okay. But this is what caused me to release that.
It was owning. I had to take responsibility. And guess what I had to do? I had to take the weights off. And I heard this when I was in the valley, when I was in the struggle. I heard this, that as go the weights with the S, so will go the weight. And I can attest to that truth in my life, that as I began to release the weights in my life, the things that were never my responsibility, the false obligation, all of that, the boundaries were then set. And I was able to get comfortable with fully being me. And that last thing, loving, loving, loving. How do you love? How do you love yourself? It's being honest. It's not taking on everything of everybody else's. It's loving you. And then with that love calls for courage. That's doing it anyway, doing it when you feel like it, doing it when you don't feel like it, doing it, being brave and consistent. And so when it was up and when it was down, it was consistency in love that built me to a place to where I'm able to live down. It's that love is that unconditional worth of you that knows that it's done without condition. Nothing you have to do to earn it. It's who you are. It's the desire, like we would desire to benefit another. Love for yourself is desire to benefit you. And so you have to look at that. What are you doing? How do you desire to benefit yourself? These are questions that are necessary in order for us to move forward. And for me, it was crucial and imperative in me authentically living. And so now it allows me to share. Now it allows me to be vulnerable. Now it allows me to embrace life on a level that I've never known before, because I learned how to do it now. I didn't learn how to do it if and when, if I make it, if they like me, if they acknowledge me, if they pay attention, if they do or don't. It does not change or affect my esteem and my belief and my confidence and my abilities of me, because those things are pure. Those things are my values. Those things are my morals. Those things are my things, and nobody else can dictate those for me. That's what I choose. And so what I say is, I had to have and know and see and believe in the power of my, not just my voice, but my choice. And that is how you authentically live. You choose every day, and sometimes every thought, and sometimes every moment, and sometimes every move, what and how you are being authentically you. And you go with that, and you sit with that, and you be gracious to you. You be gracious to you. And that's what I had to learn, grace. And that the mistakes are, don't look at them as that. Look at them as lessons. Look at this as something that you're developing in, that you're growing in, that you're going forth in. And when you do, you're able to conquer it, because what? You faced it, because you confronted it. And that's what I have learned to embrace about authentically living, that in it I can know me, I can own me, and I can love me for who I am, not who I ain't, not who I aren't, not who and what everything wants me to be, but who I am. And in that vulnerability is where I gain strength. In that vulnerability is where I'm now able to coach and be everything that I believe was in me all at the same time, but I allow the weights and the waste of everything and everyone else coming in that space that really I'm supposed to inhabit, that really I'm supposed to give the credit to, that really I'm supposed to acknowledge and hone in on and space out and really, really, really accept. No one else can do that for myself besides me. And so the real question is, when will we stop coming and just existing and just waiting and just wanting? When will we celebrate our steps, our processes, our life for what it really is, because of who we really are? Really are. Will we stop those false obligations
and when we go forth in who we really are, to share our story and to truly, authentically be us. It's time out for the unauthentic living, and it's time to tap into knowing, owning, and loving who we are. What will you choose?
Wow. What a powerful presentation. Thank you so, so, so much. Packed with knowledge, with insights, an amazing, amazing journey. Now, looking back at that, can you tell me roughly how old you were when you started to gain the weight, or were you just one of those chubby little girls who was just born like that? Was there an incident that got you to take it on?
I was a healthy baby. I had dimples everywhere. and then uh and then I went into I grew up normal. It was about 10 is when it shifted. When I noticed the change and I noticed me carrying differently. And it was 10 until I want to say 30. Yeah. So about 20 years.
20 years of your life. And you know, the way you describe it, you talk about releasing it. It's almost like you were holding it for some reason. Let's talk a little bit about that, because a lot of people don't realize that we do hold on to these energies that manifest in the physical, right? What were
Absolutely.
your lessons around that?
And that's really why I call it releasing, because that's what I've experienced it as in my life. When I put other people in other spaces and places, I noticed that that was me carrying and holding on, whether it be relationship and a boyfriend that didn't work, or if that was the distance of what I really wanted with my father. You know, when you think about what uh, parents represent, and I know everybody's system and their home is different, but fathers and research and everything shows how much they are a crucial part to a child's confidence, especially girls. And so when I began to grow up, and of course I went in the journey of mental health and the journey of psychology, all of this stuff was teaching me and showing me how all of that was important. And when I looked at what I wasn't getting and what was absent, that's what it was. And I realized because of it, I took that as, even though I love my dad, even though I respect him, my daddy could say something to me now and I probably would cry like a little baby just because he's got that kind of authority. But I realized that that was affecting how I was showing up because I thought it was something that I did that he didn't want me. And so what I did was I internalized that. And I was like, I didn't care about myself. So I was like, I don't care what I eat. Nobody cares, nobody's watching what I'm doing. Uh this distracts me. If I do this, no one's gonna look at me and nobody cares about me anyway. Like I began to tell myself that and develop limiting beliefs. And that's how I began to pack on because I didn't care.
It's a fascinating psychology, and until you're made aware of it, so I'm hoping that there's somebody who's listening to us right now who, by listening to this conversation, becomes aware of how they are being. Somebody has to reflect it back to you for you to see it clearly for yourself, correct?
Absolutely. You said something so powerful, Gertrude. Awareness and being.
Yeah.
I was not, when I was in that space, aware of that damage, that's what it was causing. And so until I was able to pinpoint why I was carrying,
Yes.
I wasn't able to deal with what I was carrying. And a lot of times people, especially obese people, and that's why I say I'm more so fit to the larger body that really struggle with that because it's different than someone who's trying to lose 5 pounds. versus someone
Yeah.
who's carried X amount of weight for so many years. There's layers to it, and 9 times out of 10, there's something emotionally or spiritually off that has shifted their view, that they need to come
Yes.
into awareness and change how they're showing up. And that's what I had to do.
Wow. Wow. Now, where your life is now, tell me a little bit about that. How have you used this experience to, I guess, get on with your life, to better your life? Let's have a little conversation around that.
Sure. Well, I'm a firm believer. Like I said, I shared how I grew up, and so with that, you have this heart flutter for wanting to change the world. I just want to change. I'm gonna grow up and be a world changer. And one day, I really began to really think about that, and I was like, but the way to change the world, is for me to change my world. And so I have a
Yes.
firm belief about the world. I know it's out here. I know people are out here. I know culture is out here, but none of that shifts without me shifting. And so as I continue to go through my healing process, because health is a lifelong process, which is what I teach. But as I
Yes.
continue to go through that, I now do it from a space and place of so much delight, because I now understand that it's okay. I can go through this and I can process, and I'll be processing for the rest of my life. It's just another lesson to add to the journey. And journey
Yeah.
speaks to going from one thing to another. So for the rest of me, I'll be going from one thing to another. And so I use this now as helping others go through their journeys of changing their worlds, not
Yeah.
so much their world, because there's so many things, especially look at the crises all around. I can't touch, you can't touch as one person, everything. But we can
Yeah.
change our sphere of influence. But even our sphere of influence, it starts with us. And so I really focus on the stuff that a lot of people don't like to look at, which is themselves in the mirror.
Yeah.
I like to do that kind of work. And so I get a lot of people, and I coach a lot that don't want to take the time to deal with them. And we work on healing and going through their journey.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And once you become aware of where you're at, that's the only point that you can make the shift or the change, correct?
Yeah, I believe that. I believe, because even, everybody has different belief systems, and everybody doesn't have the same God. We get that. But even in that, if you don't believe and know where you are, all of that stuff is going to be hindered. So yes, I do
Yeah.
believe you have to be aware first before you can move. Yeah.
So if there was somebody who's listening and they want to release, they are tired of carrying the load, they're tired of carrying the weight, what would you say to them right now? What would be their first step?
I think that you have to be, and I know I've said authentic a lot in that, but I think that you have to really be genuine about your why. Because often when it comes to wanting to release, I have the question back into that before we work on what we're releasing is, why do you want to release? Because
Yes.
if it's not a purified why, you're not going to stick with the what. And I don't care what it is. Like when it comes to money, when it comes to anything, if that why is not purified, then 9 times out of 10, somewhere down the line, you'll go back to old habits and old ways because you don't want to release for the right and pure reasons. So I would say that's the first step. Is the
Mhm.
reason for why pure?
Okay. What is your reason for being?
I kind of felt you were going to do something around that. Um,
Uh,
my reason for being, my goodness, I really, really in my heart of hearts believe that I am like a life influencer. And I know the influencer word is out here, but it's almost like, just like you have lifestyle, I kind of see
yes.
that word as life in style. And so I'm one in being here to put life in style, because I always talk about life. I always talk about what we can do to change and how we can be better, the givers and all that kind of stuff. So I really think that my being is here to be an encourager of life.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That is so beautiful. So now everything you went through was for a reason. It was
I
a
didn't think
season.
so.
Yeah, yeah. So what was the biggest learning, the biggest thing you learned from this experience?
That you're worth it.
Mm.
That you're worth it. Because a lot of times we try to work things, but we can't work things when we don't know our worth. When our worth is not to the level that it needs to be, we can always look at why she quit and why, it's not lazy, it's not inconsistent, it's not you can't do it. It's really, I ask people, what's your worth? What would your answer be to your own worth? And a lot of times ours is low because we don't even talk about ourselves right. We don't even puff ourselves up. That's why we have so many affirmations and things we try to do. But on a normal, natural basis, that's not our go-to. We're natural critiquers. And so
Yes.
I would definitely say that would be a thing.
Wow. Well, it's not good to take yourself down. I think what I'm hearing is you have to be gentle with yourself as well.
Yes, ma'am.
A lot of
ma'am.
times we are our worst critics. We are hardest on ourselves than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're overweight and you look at yourself in the mirror, what do you say to yourself to stay positive?
Oh, I call myself beautiful. I really like a lot of times too. I used to, oh my gosh, I have a huge stomach, and I have bad words for my arms, but I call my arms gunners now. Now I have a lot that I have down here that really hangs and swings, but they're my gunners. Okay, so I
Okay.
found nice, positive, or strong ways to talk about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And when people would say things like, like when they would say six pack abs, and one day I came up, I was like, but abs are a part of the body physiologically. Like biologically,
Yes.
everybody has abs. And so I started saying, I got abs too.
Yes.
We're not talking
Yes.
about the level of ab. The fact of the matter is I have some. And so now, I don't say I have a big thigh. I say, oh God, I'm thankful for my thigh. God, I'm thankful for my arm. Oh, I love my gunners. Like I do that kind of stuff. It helps me when I work out. It helps me when I don't like what I don't like, because I talk about it from a what it is point of view. It's a body part. And everybody,
Yeah.
everybody doesn't have everybody part. But the point about it is if I have it, I'm going to own and say I have that. I'm not going to use a negative connotation.
I love that. Yeah, it is about us just focusing on that positive self-image. Well, you have your work cut out for you. A lot of people are needing help right now with COVID. We've been very, very still. We haven't been moving as much as we should do. How can people get hold of you if they need your
Yes.
help?
I'm so glad you said that, because that's my whole theme, making active attractive. I don't want us to get focused on if we did 2,000 reps. I want us to be active. Can we be active every day? I can be reached at www.jleann.com. You can find me there.
So I'm going to put it in the video. Say it again.
JLEANN.
Mhm.
CO, excuse me, I forgot the CO. jleanco.com.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to just scroll it at the bottom of the screen.
Sure.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, awesome. So if anybody is needing help, here is an inspirational story on how you can release that weight. It's a choice that you get to make when you're ready to release it. And thank you so much for what you're doing. Keep it
Thank
up.
you so much for this opportunity. Her story rocks. Gertrude, it was a blessing and a pleasure to meet you. And I'm just thankful. I'm thankful. Thank you.
I'm grateful our paths have crossed. Have a fantastic day, and feel free to hang around if you want to listen to the next speaker, who's our last speaker for the day, or if you need to go, I totally understand. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great one. Bye.
Bye. Oh, wow. What a fantastic morning. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am good. Another amazing young woman who I have just recently introduced to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and we will go into your story this morning.
So, good morning. My name is Sandy Apart. I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, and in my little apartment. That's where I'm.
Fantastic. So are we going to do this as a Q&A, or would you like to just launch into your story and then I come back with the Q&A afterwards?
How about I launch into my story first and foremost, and
Sounds
then
good.
you can do a Q&A. So,
All right, the stage is yours.
thank you. So my name is Sandy Apart, and I want you to imagine a beautiful sunshiny day. It's 37 degrees Celsius. Sky is blue, the birds are chirping, the sun is, just streaming across the sky. And it's a beautiful, beautiful summer's day. You're sitting there, perhaps in the back patio. That's my dog there, shaking away. And I had another dog with me at that time, and I could hear her right next to me in that moment where I was sitting in the sunshine. Imagine now, though, you're sitting in the sunshine, but you've got a knife to your wrist. It's glistening silver, hitting your left wrist, because that's where I was at a few years ago. February 2011, in fact, sitting on my back patio on a beautiful summer's day in the darkest, gloomiest place of my life. I had no will to live. I was feeling really awful. I was down, I was depressed. I knew not what to do. I was in such a dark place that the only thing I could think of was, if I took my life, no one would miss me. No one would be impacted by it in a negative way, except for one person, just one person. And as I sat there, I kept thinking of this one person. And that person happens to be my youngest child, Keskio. And while sitting there and thinking about my child, going, how will this impact them? Maybe, if I take my life, they will be fine without me. So I wrestled with this. And it was really interesting because while I was sitting there in the darkest gloom with a knife to my wrist, I just got this little voice inside of my head saying to me, what would you miss most if you were not alive? And immediately, my child's face came up into my vision in my head and their smile. And I thought, you know what? That's what I would miss most if I weren't alive. I wouldn't miss the sunshine. I wouldn't miss the trees. I wouldn't miss the ocean. I wouldn't miss the animals. Most certainly wouldn't miss my family. I felt that everyone would be fine, except for my youngest child. And then I would miss their smile. The most interesting part about that was it was like there were two voices occurring inside my head at the same time. So one was saying, kill yourself. You've got nothing to live for. No one will miss you. No one will care. Everyone's life will be fine without you. You're nothing. You're worth absolutely nothing. You don't matter. You have never mattered. And then the other voice, what would you miss? Here's a face. Here's a smile. You'd miss this. If you killed yourself, you'd miss this. You'd miss the beauty that this brings into your life. You would miss the joy this brings into your life. And I sat there wrestling between the two because while I thought about my youngest child and missing their face, that part of me that wanted to kill myself, that said, you're not worth it, kept telling me, you're not good enough. You don't matter. You have never mattered. The world, your family, your oldest child, Liam, your husband, your mom, your dog, everyone would be better off without you. So while I wrestled, I just had the image of my youngest child keep coming up in my mind, and I thought, yeah, you know what? I really would miss this. And it was interesting because slowly that desire of what I would miss became stronger. It was soft, it was subtle. The other voice in my head was strong, it was demanding, it was nasty, it was brutal. It was in my face from within. Whereas my child's smile was soft, it was gentle, it was peaceful and harmonious. And I really wanted that because I felt that where I was in my life, that doom, that gloom, that rush to get everything done, to achieve, to be more than I could possibly in that time, the pressure of everyday life, being a wife, being a mother, being a carer to my mom, being a child, being a sibling, being a coach to all my clients, being a counselor to all my friends, not having the space to actually just be me was crushing me and suffocating me. But this one image really stood out. And in that moment, it became stronger. But it wasn't in my face strong. It wasn't bit slapping me around and telling me I was not good enough. It was just saying, you'll miss this. You'll miss this. You'll miss the joy. And luckily enough, I had a girlfriend of mine call me in that moment. And so when I say in that moment was probably about half an hour long. And her calling me, I told her, I said, this is where I'm at. I'm sitting here with a knife to my wrist. I'm waiting to kill myself. And she said to me, you know what? This is what I want you to do. Will you do it? Can you promise me that you will just do this one thing? And if you still want to kill yourself after that, do it. But if you don't, give me a call back. And I said, okay, I'll do it. What is it? And she said, when you get off the phone, I want you to go and clean your kitchen. Each and every item, each and every cupboard, each and everything. And after you have cleaned your kitchen, if you still want to kill yourself, do that. But if you don't, call me. I sat there shaking, wondering, what? Clean my kitchen? Are you kidding me? What's this going to do for me? More cleaning? I'm looking after a family and more cleaning, more cooking, all that sort of stuff to add to everything that I was, that was going on in my life. And I thought, oh my God, no, why not tell me to go sit on an island, the sunshine somewhere and soak that up? But no, it was go clean the kitchen. So I did. I said thank you to her. I put the phone down and I went and I started cleaning my kitchen. 3 weeks later, I was still cleaning my kitchen. I had each and every cupboard to get through. It was a very slow, it was an arduous process. And in that time, as I kept going through, I realized I felt a little bit better. I wasn't there yet. I was still thinking about killing myself. I was still thinking about moving myself out of this world. But then within that time, while I was cleaning the kitchen, I kept getting the same message over and over again. If I killed myself, my youngest child would come home from school and see me, whether it was in a pool of blood or if I decided that I was going to strangle myself, they'd see my body dangling. And I got by the time that, they were 12 years old, and at this time, they were only about 5, that they would kill themselves as well. And I would be doing the world a disservice because the light that they are would be distinguished because of the decision I would make. And as I allowed that to sink in while I was cleaning up my kitchen, I made the decision to live for them, to live for their smile, and to find more reasons to live. And so intuitively, I decided to also then pursue the things that would help me get better. I turned to art therapy rather than normal therapy. I turned and started doing things that brought that little bit more joy in my life. Prior to me wanting to kill myself, my ex-husband at that time, so my husband at that time, but ex-husband now, had bought me a camera because we were going away overseas. And so I turned to art. I turned to photographic art, and I started photographing for the pleasure of it. And it brought me a lot of joy, and it created shifts in my life. Slowly but surely, I went from ground zero, being where I was, feeling as down as I was, to slowly and surely picking myself up, picking up the pieces, finding out everything that was missing. And in doing so, I realized that a chunk of my life had been taken and suppressed in childhood. It had just been shoved down. Growing up, I was told, doctor, lawyer, accountant. I was not allowed the gift of expressing myself fully. And while I love the sciences, and I have always loved the sciences, there was a part of me that loved to sing, dance. I wanted to play music. I wanted to play piano. I wanted to do acrobatics. I wanted to ride horses, and I wanted to paint and draw and photograph. I wanted to do all those things. And yet, even though I had had dribs and drabs of it in my life, the chunk of it had been missing. So this period of my life from 2011 onwards became a period of discovery, reinventing myself, reinventing who I am, bringing forth those hidden parts of me in my authentic self-expression that had been suppressed, repressed, oppressed, and bringing that into the forefront of my life and allowing that part of me to take center stage. Going forward a few more years, going through all the hard work, and I mean hard work, it takes effort. Just like cleaning the kitchen takes effort, beginning to clean up my life to allow myself to be authentically expressed took effort. In each and every milestone, I had to recognize that I was stepping forward in the right direction. I was stepping forward for my future. And I've always tried to live my life by example, not only to myself, to my children, to my clients, to my family, to the outer world, my outer community. And I realized by not embracing this part of me, this authentic self-expression that had been suppressed, or a part of it, a big part of it had been suppressed, that I would be doing myself and the rest of the world a disservice, that I would not be living my life by the example that I said that I would. So I took it on. I took on photography. I took on changing my life. And I went on to become an award-winning photographer. I'd also given myself time to heal within that space. And I had stopped working. And I'd embraced more of who I am now. And as I kept doing that, I became even more confident. I became a little bit more outgoing. Slowly and surely, a lot of these things changed for me. So went on to become an award-winning photographer, set up a business in photography, did family photography, explored a whole lot of things in that way. I did portrait photography, landscape photography, very creative stuff. And now I've come all the way around, all the way back to, again, I took up coaching women again. I took up training and development. And I'm like, this is my love too. I cannot just stop doing that. How can I marry whom I have discovered myself to be and the other love of my life. And I went, you know what? I'm going to make it work. I'm going to marry them, and I'm going to make it work for the rest of my life. And so this is exactly what I have done. I use my art more now for philanthropy. I use it to bring awareness to women's issues, such as rape, honor killings, being objectified, being used as a sexual object. And at the same time, I also developed training programs to assist women in being authentically self-expressed. So slowly and surely, I've come to this point in my life now. You know, I turned 48 this month, and I'm looking back at the number of years that I have lived in my life, and I've come so far from where I had been as a child to living the kind of life that I had. It wasn't a pleasant life. There was a lot of pleasantness around me, but it wasn't a pleasant life. I'm a survivor of child abuse and sexual abuse. I am a survivor of domestic violence. I'm a survivor of self-inflicted harm. I'm a survivor of sexism and racism, and I'm still surviving. But more than that, I'm thriving in my life. And one of the things I've come to realize over the reflection that I've had over the years coming forth to where I am now and where I'm moving to in my life is that I've always wanted to help people. More than anything now, I want to help women. And the reason being, if I can go through living the kind of life that I lived and being here and being thriving, then I can help other women to continually be that person that they have yearned to be, or to even discover the person that they did not know they are, all the things that have been hidden. Because everything is within us, everything in the cosmos is within us, and it's just waiting for us to tap into that and to be authentically self-expressed. And so my journey has led me to here. I've set up a new business last year, which I'm working on slowly. A few years ago, I started doing a double degree in creative arts and psychology, and this is my final year of finishing off my psychology degree. I finished my creative arts last year, and I'm still marrying the two major loves of my life, all centered around women, all centered around heartfelt, wholesome, empowered, and authentic living. I'm talking mind, body, spirit. I'm not saying, cut off a limb in spite of. No, I'm saying wholesomeness. Bring everything into the mix, because we women are multidimensional beings. We're not just mind. We're not just body. We're not just spirit. We're everything. We're the trifecta of life. We are the whole cosmos of life. We are creators. We give birth. So I'm all up for tapping into our energy. I'm all up for the masculine, the feminine that lives within us to be fully self-expressed in a harmonious and balanced way so that it impacts our lives positively. So I hope that my story here today is something that inspires you. And if it doesn't inspire you, that perhaps you have thought of somebody and gone, you know what? That person's going through this right now. Maybe they need to listen to this. Because the depths that I have gone to, and yes, I have not told you each and every detail of that. That would take a few hours, and we are time limited today. But if that gives you a little bit of scope of what it is that I have lived through, then I hope that you will use this to be able to help other people. And it doesn't matter if they're men, women, trans women, the LGBTQI community, anyone, because really our life is worth living. And finding and living our authentic self-expression is more important today than it has ever been in our lives. as much as the pandemic has occurred and it caused a lot of strife, I think what it also has done is made a lot of people realize the priorities that they have in their life. So I thank you so much for listening to my story. I really appreciate it.
Wow. Thank you so much. What a journey you have lived through. And what I sense, what I feel is you have come back strong, so strong. It's like the mountains kind of move out of the way because of the space that you occupy now. But it's been quite a journey to get to that point, right?
It has been.
Let's unpack your presentation a little bit and give us a bit of a background, where you're from. You touched on so many issues that affect women worldwide. And what I'm finding as I'm curating all of these stories is that our issues, our women, are more similar than they are different. Doesn't matter whether you talk to a woman from Africa, from Australia, from Canada. We have similar shared experiences. So tell us a little bit about your background.
So I'm from the Fiji Islands originally. I'm fifth generation, part Indian, Nepalese background, born in the Fiji Islands. And so I grew up in Suva, which is the capital, and I was privileged in the sense that my mother really fought for my brother and I to attend an Anglican school. It was quite progressive for my family, and even more so for them, for my brother and I not to be attending an Indian school, for example. Mm-hmm. And what that really did for me was, I love the diversity that I got in school. It was very multicultural. And my love of learning was really, I guess, just imbued within. The sense of self-improvement started from grade 1. So when I first went to school, I knew how to read. I was, you could say, fortunate or perhaps unfortunate. When I was about 4 years old, my brother tore a children's book of mine. And that gave me the impetus to learn to read and memorize things as well. And so by the time I went to school, I knew how to read, but I did not know arithmetic, mathematics, absolutely not. And so while the teachers were teaching me, it just didn't compute. It just went straight over my head. And so twice a year they had exams, and the first exam that they had, I came in, I think it was second last in class. It was a big class. It was about 50 people in the class. And the people who came first, second, and third, they got prizes and they got books. And I went, oh, a reward at the end of the light, at the end of the tunnel. And I thought, I can do something. And I had not realized this. It was only, a few years ago that I realized that became, a reason for me. It was like the carrot that was being dangled, but you actually got the carrot. It's not like it was always just dangling in front of you. You actually got to enjoy the prize. And so at the end of the year, the exam that we had, I came in 4th. And I thought, no prizes for me. But I got a prize because my teachers recognized me as the most improved student. And they gave me books. And so I was reading, and I love reading. I still love reading to this day. And very early on, the stories that I read started off, by the time I was 5, I was reading Mills and Boon because that's what my mom had. All these romantic things. And then I got introduced to a world of Enid Blyton and Tolkien and, the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew and all that. So adventure and everything imbued within me. And I became curious, especially with the Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys books, that sense of observation and investigation, that curiosity. And so I think I started to really apply that in my life, and I started to use that in improving my own self. My self-improvement started a long time before I started my first personal development course in the year 2000 or something, or actually even prior to that. It was that sense of curiosity of being more than I could be. Now, the culture that I came from, I fought against the odds. I was brought up in a household where my brother received so much more than I did because he was a boy. And boys make it in the world. You're a girl. Sure, one day you can get your degree, but you get married, you have children, and that's your life. You will look after your children, you will look after your grandchildren, you will grow to your grave that way. You will not travel. You will not have a career. But up until that point where you can get to go to school and all that, because it's expected, you'll get to do all that. But then your life ends. Your life becomes somebody else's. And I fought against sexism in my family. My brother would come home early years on and he would say, she's not allowed to wear shorts. She's a girl. Not allowed to. My mother had to fight for me in order to wear shorts. My dad was like, I don't see anything wrong with it. But even my brother, because he was brought up again also in that culture of she's a girl. She's being provocative. She shouldn't be wearing shorts. She's a girl. Head to toe, cover her up. I had to fight for my right to actually survive because while, yes, I was being sent to school, my brother got new shoes and I had to make do while I was growing with shoes that did not fit. And I had to go to school. People would laugh at me and I would be embarrassed, but I would still go to school. I still went on with my life. I still put my energy and effort into the things that mattered to me. I remember being raped from very early on in my life. And it was my mom's brothers, 3 of her brothers were raping me from age 3. I didn't tell my family about this until the year 2005. I did not tell my mom. I told my therapist. I'd struggled with this for a really long time, getting in and out of bad relationships early on. And it affected me as a teenager. And then afterwards, more so because that sense of self-worth that I had was really eroded. And I had turned to alcohol in the early years of my life, and whiskey had been my drug of choice, you could say. And and that continued for over and over again for quite some time. And then when I was 14, my mom came to Australia to be with my brother, who had won a scholarship over here in one of the schools, and I was living with my dad, and my uncles at that time had stopped coming over because my mom wasn't there, and so they had stopped coming over, and suddenly I became safe. But 3 months later, my dad stopped coming home. So here I am, 14-year-old child. This is in the days prior to cell phones, prior to the internet. My mom lived in a different country. I had no contact information of hers. I had not received any letters from her. I had not received any phone calls from her. So my dad stopped coming home, especially on the weeknights. He would come home on the weekends sometimes, and he would, buy food and all that, made sure I had food. So I became a full-time carer for myself.
At 14?
At 14. Living on my own at 14, minding a house made for a family, mowing the lawn on a weekly basis, raking all the grass and, putting them in the pit, setting fire to them, taking out the trash, sweeping and mopping the house daily when I got home from school sometime in the evening, waking up, washing my clothes, washing my school uniform, everything, including cooking, looking after the dogs and cooking and cleaning and looking after myself. I became independent really quickly. I had to rely on myself. There were people around me. I had family living down the road, but there wasn't much support from them. There really wasn't much support from them. I was brought up, my mom made sure I knew how to cook and clean and all that. So, that made a difference. But God damn it, it took a lot of energy. It took a lot of my time in the evenings. It affected my studies. And so that happened. And it became a very lonely existence. Living on my own at 14 in a house by myself was just, it was hard work. So I was 15 when I first tried to kill myself. I ate rat poison. And I think my dad happened to come home that night and probably found me on the floor. I don't remember. All I know is that I was sick for quite some time. And so after that, he made more of an effort to be at our home. I was going to say at my home because technically it became my home, not even his. He made more of an effort to be at our home, but it was still, a couple of times a week, rather than having that constant presence in my life of, the parent looking after me. And so, and I had not heard from my mom in a couple of years, and then her father passed away, my grandfather, whom I absolutely loved. So this was January of 1990. And my mom and my brother came over for his funeral. It was the first time I'd seen my mom and I'd heard from her, and it was magical. And what was interesting about that was that my mom was a little bit standoffish towards me. And we discussed this just about 3 years ago when we realized a whole lot of other things were in play for us that I wasn't aware of at that time. And anyway, my mom made sure that I got to Australia that year, and I ended up moving when I was 16 and a half to come to Australia, and I started living with my mom and my brother. And so I went from being in a household to living independently to, again, living in a household. But unfortunately for me, one of the things that happened was that one of my mom's brothers was living here. And the abuse started again. And that went on for a few months until he killed my auntie. He murdered my auntie, my mom's cousin, his cousin, and then killed himself. And it was traumatic for everyone involved. It did bring me a lot of relief, though, because suddenly my abuser had died and was gone, and that gave me a lot of relief. But it affected me. It still affected my schooling, all that abuse. And I didn't know whom to talk to about this. I wasn't even brought up. As a woman, I was brought up, shut up. Keep your mouth shut. Do not speak about anything. Do not speak about any hardship, any problems.
So everything was suppressed. You weren't allowed to express how it was affecting you. You couldn't even process it, really.
No, wouldn't even know where to start. And I remember back then, I mean, this is going back 30 years ago. I remember back then, therapy, seeing a shrink, oh my gosh, the stigma attached to it. It was, and coming from an ethnic background, even more so.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no help, there was no therapy, there was no living life happy. It was a case of compartmentalize it and move on and live your life. And so I did. Failed relationships, not being able to work, all of that. Became a single mom of a young boy, Liam, and continued to suffer and continued to have hardship. And at that time, I became more and more actively involved in the personal development community.
Okay.
Prior to that, I started going to school, studying naturopathy and all that, wanting something different that would help me and help people in their lives. and not just short-term solutions. I was,
Long term.
long-term for the rest of
Yeah.
your life solution. So I became involved while I was still studying in personal development, and it started changing my life. I started setting goals. I started attracting the things that I thought that I wanted. And,
Yes.
they say, be careful what you wish for because you'll get it. You really
Correct.
do have to be careful what you wish for. You really
Right.
do. I attracted a husband, had another child with him, Casquillo, who was born female at birth and is transitioning and was born with the name Mercedes. That's the name we chose to give her. And now he is my son. And they've chosen the name Casquillo. What a beautiful name. What a beautiful name. But in that time, I had a lot of growing up to do as well. While looking after and maintaining a family, I worked from home, very part-time, not even enough to register for taxes at the end of the year, the financial year. So that I would have some sort of financial contribution in the family, so I could have some sort of money. But it was hard work as well, again, because while my ex-husband made thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, I wasn't privy to that money. It was a case of what's mine is mine for him, what's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine as well. That's the attitude that he had towards me. And I gave everything to my family because to me, oh yes, it's my family, this is us, this is togetherness. There was no sense of, hey, you got to look after yourself here.
Yeah. And it's a mistake that a lot of women make.
Yeah, because we're not taught to. We're taught to trust that our man will be with us or our partner will be with us for the rest of our lives. And everything that we put into our family is also about us, but it's not.
It's not.
I've learned that the hard way.
So tell me something. If there was a woman listening to your story right now who's in exactly the same position that you were in, this is going to be the last question I ask you, and you could give her 3 nuggets of wisdom, what would you say to her?
Never stop wanting to be yourself. First and foremost, never, ever, ever stop wanting to be yourself. Putting yourself first means putting yourself first. That means eating food first. That means showering. That means going to school, going to work. That means spending your money on you first. It does not mean give to your family and that's first. No. There is a real difference between our perceived self-care and our real self-care. Because our perceived self-care says take a bath, light a candle, sit down and say Om. But the real self-care comes into being educate yourself. Never stop educating yourself. Strive for that. Learn more. Personally develop yourself. Professionally develop yourself. Go for your dreams. Look after you first. You have some money, put it in your own investments. Women get afraid of prenups. Now I'm thinking, wow, what an amazing thing, because as I'm moving through in the world, I don't care if I end up attracting a man who's a billionaire. Whatever I have, I want to protect what I have.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of me first. I'm going to invest in me first. I'm going to leave a legacy for my children. I'm going to leave a legacy for other women in this world. And by doing, the only way I can do that is by taking care of me first.
That's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. The third thing I would say is, would you be proud of yourself, who you are right now, if you are keeping yourself small, if you're not authentically expressing yourself, your son, your daughter, your child, doesn't matter what gender they are. Would you be proud to show them who you are right now. And if there's a part of you that says, you're not, it's not a case of feel the fear. It's a case of fix the fear. Because we actually have, in this modern day and age, we actually have tools and technology that can help us. And this is where I think, personal development has made such a huge impact, not only in my life, but my family's life as well. So those are the 3 nuggets that I would like to leave them with.
Fantastic.
Those are the 3 nuggets I'd like to leave you with. Those are the 3 nuggets I'd like to leave me with, because really this is an everyday thing. This is not a do it once. You can't expect to have the kind of body that you want by going to the gym once a year.
No, it's consistent.
Consistent effort. It means showing up consistently, doing the work, tweaking the work, shifting and changing the work even as you go along. It's never the same. The things that I did 20 years ago are not the same things that I do today. The things I ate 20 years ago, the clothes I wore 20. Actually, I could say that, 6 months ago, the clothes I wore 20 years ago, I was still wearing, but 6 months ago, I threw out 95% of my wardrobe.
Yeah, I love it.
I wanted that change in my life. I still fit into it. It still look good. I still look fabulous. But I wanted to finally embrace more of the authentic me. Bold colors.
Thank you. You're living a full expression of yourself. It's a beautiful thing to watch and a beautiful reminder to all of us. Thank you for ending today's Herstory Online Summit. I'm excited that you are a part of our tribe. I'm excited that you will be one of the speakers at our major event in person here in Melbourne at the end of the year in December.
Thank you.
Thank you for gracing us with your presence. Don't go away. I'm just going to say goodbye to everybody. Again, the Herstory movement is attracting some powerful women. Tune in again tomorrow when I bring you another lineup of fascinating stories. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye.